Ejercito. Secretary, please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Aquino, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Hontiveros, Senator Lacson, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcoleta, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Soto, Senator Tulfo Erwin, Senator Tulfo Rafi, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Camille, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 21 senators present, Chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, before we proceed, may I be allowed to just acknowledge some guests from the gallery. Guests of Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Congresswoman Emery Lollipop Uwano, Dizon of the Lone District of Mandaue City, our good friend, Mayor Jonky Duano of Mandaue. Guests of Senator Peter Cayetano, LGU officials of Santa Teresita, Batangas, led by Mayor Norberto Seguinal Jr., LGU officials of Pateros, Metro Manila, led by Vice Mayor Carlos Santos. Guests of Senator Legarda, Secretary Robert E.A. Borge of the Climate Change Commission with Commissioner Rachel Ann Herrera. Guests of Senator Padilla, representatives from the Bicol Federation of Associations of Private Schools and Administrators. Guests of this representation and Senator Pangilinan, Governor Jun Aguto of Batanes, Congresswoman Van Aumentado of the 2nd District of Bohol, Mayor Romel Magbitang of Naik Cavite, LGU officials of Camarines Norte, led by Acting Vice Governor Dennis Riel, and guests of Senator Estrada, Mayor Kimer Olaso of Zamboanga City, Mayor Kimer Olaso, Mr. President. We welcome all of them in this August chamber, Mr. President.
To the aforementioned guests, welcome to your Senate. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 4th session Monday, August 4, 2025, and consider the same as approved.
Mr. President,
What is the pleasure of the Minority Floor Leader?
Mr. President, may I request that we take up the journal at a later time, as we have not gone through the contents. We have not received a copy yet, so we would like to check on some manifestations that were made.
I withdraw my motion, Mr. President.
Motion is withdrawn.
Thank you, Mr.
Majority Leader.
President. Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we proceed with the reference of business. I so move, Mr.
Any
President.
objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved. Secretary is directed to comply.
Bills on first reading, Senate Number 251, an act streamlining the implementation of government infrastructure projects through round-the-clock operations to promote efficiency and its effective execution, Senator Tulfo E.
To the Committees on Public Works, Labor, Employment and Human Resource Development and Finance.
252, establishing the Overseas Filipino Workers Pension Fund to provide pension to overseas Filipino workers and for other purposes, Senator Tulfo
The
E.
Committee on Migrant Workers and Finance.
253, instituting a periodic review of franchises granted to power distribution utilities and electric cooperatives, providing grounds for the suspension, amendment, or revocation of franchises of non-performing entities and for other purposes, Senator Tulfo E.
To the Committees on Public Services and Energy.
254, an act penalizing selective, discretionary, and discriminatory acts in the delivery of social protection programs, Senator Tulfo E.
The Committee on Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development.
255, establishing a public veterinary clinic in every city and municipality, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, Local Government and Finance.
256, establishing the National Center for Geriatric Health and Research Institute, defining its powers and functions, creating regional geriatric specialty centers in the Department of Health retained hospitals, and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Health and Demography, Ways and Means and Finance.
257, granting distinctive honors and privileges to national athletes, creating a national endowment fund for sports heroes, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Sports, Ways and Means and Finance.
258, an act to provide early youth suicide intervention and prevention expansion, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Youth, Health and Demography, and Finance.
259, institutionalizing the program of strengthening and expanding military facility readiness for national security, also known as Tatag ng Infrastruktura para sa Kapayapaan at Seguridad, TICA, Senator Villar M.
The Committees on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification and Reconciliation, Public Works, and Finance.
Senate Number 260, an act instituting a national health program to combat systemic lupus erythematosus disease and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance.
261, an act providing for the writing off of loans or condonation of unpaid interest, penalties, and surcharges of loans and loan restructuring secured by farmers, fisherfolk, and agrarian reform beneficiaries from the Department of Agrarian Reform, Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Credit Policy Council, Cooperative Development Authority, National Food Authority, and Kedanang Rural Credit Guarantee Corporation, Senator Villar M.
To the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform.
262, an act establishing a welfare and social assistance program for families left behind by migrant workers, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Migrant Workers, Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality and Finance.
263, an act enabling the COMELEC to establish an automated and online system for voter registration and providing funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
The Committees on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation and Finance.
264, establishing free on-site living facilities for public school teachers and providing funds therefore, Senator Villar M.
To the Committees on Urban Planning, Housing and Resettlement, Public Works, and Finance.
265, an act abolishing the excise tax imposed on diesel, kerosene, liquefied petroleum gas, fuel oil, and unleaded gasoline oil, amending Section 148 of the NIRC of 1997 as amended, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
266, an act to lower the price of electricity by exempting its sale by generation, transmission, and distribution companies and electricity cooperatives from the imposition of VAT, amending Sections 108A and 1091 of the NIRC as amended by RA 9337 and for other purposes, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committees on Energy and Ways and Means.
267, an act increasing the income tax exemption ceiling for individual taxpayers to 480,000 annually, amending Section 224A, 2A, and B of the NIRC as amended, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
268, an act abolishing the travel tax on Filipinos and on nationals of Association of Southeast Asian Nations member states traveling to other ASEAN member states, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committee on Ways and Means and Tourism.
269, increasing the monthly social pension of senior citizens and expanding the coverage thereof, amending Sections 2 and 5 of RA 7432 as amended by RA 9257, otherwise known as the Expanded Senior Citizens Act of 2010, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committees on Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Finance.
270, an act providing for free annual medical checkup for Filipinos, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committees on Health and Demography and Finance.
271, upgrading the minimum salary grade level of nurses from salary grade 15 to 19, amending Section 32 RA 9173, the Philippine Nursing Act of 2002, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, Health and Demography, and Finance.
272, providing for a Magna Carta for barangay officials and personnel, recognizing their role in local governance and service delivery, professionalizing barangay service, granting salaries, benefits, and social protection, and for other purposes, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committees on Local Government, Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, and Finance.
273, an act providing for a 200 pesos daily minimum wage increase for employees and workers in the private sector, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development.
274, an act promoting profit-sharing arrangement between employers and employees, establishing a national framework and support mechanisms, and for other purposes, Senator Aquino IV.
To the Committees on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development, Ways and Means, and Finance.
275, an act increasing the benefits of barangay officials, amending for the purpose Paragraph A, Section 393, Chapter 4, Title 1, Book 3 of RA 7160, the Local Government Code of 1991, Senator Escudero.
To the Committee on Local Government.
276, institutionalizing a comprehensive social benefits program for uniformed personnel and other qualified auxiliary service members who are killed, wounded, or rendered physically disabled in legitimate actions or operations, creating for the purpose a comprehensive social benefits program, trust fund, and for other purposes, Senator Escudero.
To the Committees on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation, Local Government, and Finance.
277, strengthening PD 1096, the National Bidding Code of the Philippines, as amended by mandating a comprehensive nationwide inspection of buildings and imposing stiffer penalties against building officials who violate the pertinent provisions of the said code, Senator Escudero.
The Committees on Public Works and Local Government.
278, an act mandating the full accounting of all disaster relief or donations received by the Philippine government for natural and human-induced calamities, Senator Escudero.
To the Committee on Finance.
279, Philippine Immigration Act, Senator Escudero.
To the Committees on Justice and Human Rights, Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation and Finance.
280, anak allocating a fixed percentage of the proceeds from the disposition of forfeited properties in corruption cases to the Office of the Ombudsman, amending Section 6 of RA 1379, the forfeiture law. Senator Escudero.
To the Committee on Justice and Human Rights.
281, amending Section 20, Chapter 2, Title 8 of NIRC Code of 1997 as amended. Senator Escudero.
The Committee on Ways and Means.
282, anak providing for the automatic promotion of government officials and employees upon retirement from government service and for other purposes. Senator Escudero.
To the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation and Finance.
283, anak granting tax exemptions and incentives to accredited film industry stakeholders and establishing the Nora Honor Award for Film Excellence. Senator Escudero.
To the Committees on Public Information and Mass Media, Ways and Means, and Finance.
284, promoting rice security by ensuring the adequate supply and stable price of rice and strengthening the mandate of the NFA, amending RA 8178, the Agricultural Tarification Act as amended. Senator Escudero.
To the Committees on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, Ways and Means, and Finance.
285, defining and prohibiting political dynasties, providing penalties therefore and for other purposes. Senator Pangilinan.
To the Committees on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation and Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes.
286, anak allowing disclosure of deposits, repealing for the purpose of the pertinent laws on secrecy of deposits. Senator Pangilinan.
To the Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies.
287, anak instituting a national land use policy, providing the implementing mechanisms therefore and for other purposes. Senator Pangilinan.
To the Committees on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking, and Finance.
288, providing for the management, control, regulation, and utilization of rainwater runoff and the improvement of ecological characteristics of catchments to address flooding and water supply needs in urban and rural centers, creating the necessary institutional mechanisms therefore. Senator Pangilinan.
To the Committees on Public Works and Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking.
289, regulating the manufacturing, importation, and use of single-use plastic products and providing penalties, levies, and an incentive system for industries, business enterprises, and consumers thereof. Senator Pangilinan.
The Committees on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, Ways and Means, and Finance.
290, anak providing for a Magna Carta for dignified commuting, creating the National Office of Commuter Affairs, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Senator Pangilinan.
To the Committees on Public Services and Finance.
291, anak establishing the Philippine National Public Park System and appropriating funds therefore. Senator Pangilinan.
To the Committees on Urban Planning, Housing and Resettlement, Tourism, Ways and Means, and Finance.
292, anak establishing a national energy policy and regulatory framework for facilities utilizing waste or energy technology. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Energy, Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change, Ways and Means, and Finance.
293, anak creating the Mindanao Railways Authority, prescribing its powers, functions, and duties, amending RA 4156, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Government, Corporations, and Public Enterprises, Public Services, Ways and Means, and Finance.
294, anak institutionalizing the Philippine Bamboo Industry Development Program, appointing funds therefore and for other purposes. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship, Ways and Means, and Finance.
295, establishing the Medical Reserve Corps and appropriating funds therefore. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Health and Demography, and Finance.
296, Philippine Immigration Act. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Justice and Human Rights, Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation, and Finance.
297, mandating ship ownership, crew, and concerned government agencies to provide for and ensure the safety of passengers at sea, providing penalties for violations thereof and for other purposes. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committee on Public Services.
298, establishing a National Cancer Center to be known as the National Cancer Center of the Philippines and appropriating funds therefore. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Health and Demography, Ways and Means, and Finance.
299, establishing a Center for Autism and for other purposes. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Health and Demography, Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, and Finance.
300, providing for a system of redistributing and recycling food waste to promote food security. Senator Zubiri.
To the Committees on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, Ways and Means, and Finance. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, yesterday during the session, and this representation was actually downstairs when the minority leader raised yesterday that the Committee on Rules has prepared an advice in response to the minority leader's request and recommendation yesterday. Your Committee on Rules has prepared an advisory to all members of the Senate that the Senate shall observe a limit of 2 privileged speeches per session, and that members, Mr. President, are respectfully reminded that while the right to deliver privileged speeches is fully recognized, this must be exercised with due regard to the collective responsibility of managing the time and proceedings of the chamber, in an efficient and orderly manner. Let me just put that into the records, Mr. President. Thank you.
Duly noted and entered into the records.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 10, Pursuant to Rule 10, Section 13 of our rules, Mr. President, I move that we elect the following members of the Committee on Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform. For Vice Chairperson, Senators Amy Marcos and Rodante Marcoleta. For members, Senator Bam Aquino, Bato de la Rosa, Christopher Bongo, Robin Hood Padilla, Mark Villar, Rafi Tulfo, Win Gatchalian, Lito Lapid, Pia Cayetano, and for the minority, Senators Risa Hontiveros, Ping Lacson, and Lauren Legarda. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are so elected to the Committee on Agriculture and Agrarian Reform.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Basic Education. Vice Chairperson, Senator Win Gatchalian and Senator Rafi Tulfo, and for its members, Senators Pangilinan, Cayetano, De La Rosa, Go, Lapid, Padilla, Marcos, and for the minority, Senators Legarda and Hontiveros. I so move, Mr. President.
The Cayetano you referred to, Majority Leader, is Senator Pia Cayetano.
Yes, sorry, Senator Pia Cayetano, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are so elected to the Committee on Basic Education.
Thank you,
Majority
Mr.
Leader.
President. Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, and Professional Regulation. For Vice Chairperson, Senator Christopher Bongo, and for its members, Senators Marcos, Padilla, Gatchalian, and for the minority, Senator Legarda. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are elected to the Committee on Civil Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Cooperatives. For Vice Chairperson, Senator Francis Pangilinan, and for its members, Senators Go, De La Rosa, Padilla, Aquino, Lapid, and for the minority, Senator Legarda. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are so elected to the Committee on Cooperatives.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation. For Vice Chairpersons, Senators Risa Hontiveros and Amy Marcos, and for its members, Senators Aquino, Go, Padilla, Lapid, Pangilinan, Gatchalian, and Senator Erwin Tulfo. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are elected to the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Foreign Relations. For Vice Chairperson, Senators Erwin Tulfo and Senator Lauren Legarda, and for its members, Senators Go, De La Rosa, Padilla, Senator Mark and Camille Villar, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, Senator Lapid, Senator Gatchalian, and Senator Pia Cayetano. And for the minority, Senators Hontiveros and Lacson. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are elected to the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Games and Amusement. For Vice Chairperson, Senators De La Rosa and Bongo. For its members, Senators Rafi Tulfo, Padilla, Mark Villar, Lito Lapid, and for the minority, Senator Lauren Legarda. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are elected to the Committee on Games and Amusement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development. For Vice Chairperson, Senator Rafi Tulfo, and for its members, Senators Go, De La Rosa, Padilla, Lapid, Mark Villar, Camille Villar, Win Gatchalian, and Alan Peter Cayetano. And for the minority, Senators Legarda and Hontiveros. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are elected to the Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Local Government. For Vice Chairperson, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, and for its members, Senators Go, Rafi Tulfo, Erwin Tulfo, Mark Villar, Padilla, Lapid, Marcos, Gatchalian, and Bam Aquino. And for the minority, Senators Legarda and Lacson. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, the aforementioned members are hereby elected to the Committee on Local Government.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Migrant Workers. For its Vice Chairperson, Senators Marcos and Bongo. And for its members, Senators De La Rosa, Padilla, Mark Villar, Lapid Aquino, Erwin Tulfo, Gatchalian. And for the minority, Senators Legarda and Hontiveros. I so move, Mr.
Any
President.
objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are hereby elected to the Committee on Migrant Workers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 10, Section 13 of our rules, I now move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs. For Vice Chairperson, Chairperson Senator Christopher Bongo, and for its members, Senators Rafi Tulfo, Amy Marcos, Mark Villar, Robin Hood Padilla, and Alan Peter Cayetano. And for the minority, Senator Panfilo Lacson. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are hereby deemed elected to the Committee on Public Order, Dangerous Drugs.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Public Services for Vice Chairpersons, Senators Ejercito, Marcoleta, and Gatchalian. For its members, Aquino, De La Rosa, Go, Lapid, Pangilinan, and Senator Mark Villar. And for the minority, Senators Legarda and Hontiveros. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are hereby elected to the Committee on Public Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development. For Vice Chairperson, Senators Bongo and Amy Marcos. And for its members, Senators De La Rosa, Padilla, and for the minority, Senator Loren Legarda. So move, Mr.
Any
President.
objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are elected to the Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development.
Mr. President, I move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Tourism. For Vice Chairperson, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, and for its members, Senators Go, Rafi Tulfo, Mark Villar, Padilla, Lapid, Pangilinan, Marcos, Gatchalian, and Camille Villar. And for the minority, Senators Legarda and Hontiveros. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, aforementioned members are hereby elected to the Committee on Tourism.
May I ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President? Before we suspend, Mr.
What is the
President,
pleasure of the Honorable
Deputy-
Hontiveros?
Salamat, Abi, Mr. President. I just like to make a point of inquiry, if I may.
The lady may proceed.
Salamat po, Mr. President. A point of inquiry, Mr. President. We'd like to clarify reports from the Senate media that verbal instructions were given to them to the effect that they would be limited from covering the session tomorrow. Ang sabi sa kanila, pwede kayo pero kailangan nakaupo. Ang kaso po, Mr. President, wala namang upuan. So para sa madami nating mga kaibigan sa media, parang hindi sila pinapahintulutan sa session hall, taliwas po sa tradisyon at nakasanayan. So, mari po bang bigyan ng kalinawan, Mr. President, ang tanong na ito para on the record, madinig na mga kaibigan nating mamamahayag at maiwasan ang kalituhan bukas, Mr. President.
Naipaliwanag na po sa kanila na nagkaroon ng hindi pagkakaunawaan kaugnay sa pahayag na binigay ng PRIB kanina. Rektang pinaliwanag yan ng Senate Secretary sa mga miyembro ng media na hindi totoo, hindi accurate at hindi naunawaan yung naunang sinabi ng PRIB. So wala pong ganon. Kung ano ang meron ngayon, ma'am, available din sa media yun tulad ng ordinaryong araw at sesyon natin.
Salamat, Mr. President. So, ibig sabihin po, nakatayo man sila or nakaupo, ay papayagan po yung Senate media mag-cover sa session natin bukas ng hapon,
Senator
Mr. President.
Hontiveros, usually members of the media cover the session from the media because from their office there at the media center because they get to see from all angles from cameras provided by PRIB what's going on in the session hall. They're usually not inside the session hall all the time.
Yes, I understand that, Mr. President, but given the importance of the debate tomorrow afternoon, kaya ko po hiniling lang ganitong kalinawan na papayagan po silang makapasok at makapag-cover ng session bukas ng hapon, Mr.
They
President.
can as they usually do, Your Honor, and I don't think there's any reason for us to limit or inhibit that.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. And
Thank you,
that's-
Senator Hontiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority of
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, as the designation of members of the Committee on Finance and the Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation, each being composed, Mr. President, of 20 members, may I respectfully move that all other senators, excluding the Senate President, and the ex officio members be designated as regular members of these committees. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion of the Majority Leader is approved.
Mr. President, upon the recommendation of the chairperson of the Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation, may I also respectfully manifest the designation of the following senators as vice chairpersons of the said committee: Senators De La Rosa, Go, and Lacson. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, the aforementioned members are hereby deemed elected as vice chairpersons respectively of the Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation.
Mr. President, may I ask for a minute suspension?
Session is suspended.
Mr. President, our Minority Leader, Senator Tito Soto, is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President, before this representation. You want me to move first? Yeah. I withdraw that motion, Mr. President. May I be allowed, Mr. President, to respectfully move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 4th session, Monday, August 4, 2025, and consider the same as approved. I so move, Mr.
Is
President.
there an objection?
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator.
not to object, but
Minority
an amendment to the journal, lest I be misconstrued. May I call the attention of the Senate Secretariat on page 29 of the journal, the first paragraph after manifestation of Senator Soto. It reads, Senator Soto suggested that instead of filing a bill, comma, the Committee on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, etc., etc. It seems that I was preventing the Committee on Agriculture from filing a bill, instead study. The correct interpretation, Mr. President, is for myself. Senator Soto suggested that instead of his representation filing a bill, it's the Committee on Agriculture, etc., to study. So I was preventing myself from filing to place on record, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Soto. The Secretariat is instructed to correct the manifestation of the comments of Senator Soto.
Yes,
Majority Leader?
Mr. President. With that, Mr. President, I move for the previous motion that we dispense the reading of the journal of the 4th session, Monday, August 4, 2025, as amended and as stated, Mr. President, by our Minority Leader, and consider the same as approved.
Is
I
there
so
an-
move, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, the motion is approved.
Mr. President, just one last election of members of the permanent committees. May I respectfully move that we elect the following as members of the Committee on Urban Planning, Housing, and Resettlement. For Vice Chairperson, Senators Go, Tulfo, and Camille Villar. And for its members, Senators Aquino, Pia Cayetano, Amy Marcos, and for the minority, Senator Lauren Legarda. I so move, Mr. President.
An objection? There being none, the aforementioned members are hereby elected.
Mr. President, at this juncture, the distinguished lady from Antique, Senator Lauren Legarda, is seeking the floor to deliver her privileged speech. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Lauren Legarda is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. 38, hindi bababa sa bilang na ito ang mga buhay na nawala na hindi na maibabalik. Sa loob lamang ng 2 linggo, 3 bagyo, Krising, Dante at Emong ang sunod-sunod na nalasa sa ating bansa. Walang pahingang bumulusok ng ulan, humagupit ang hangin at inanod ang mga tahanan, kabuhayan at pangarap. Mahigit 8 milyong Pilipino ang naapektuhan. 55,000 tahanan ang nasira at halos 13 bilyong piso na halaga ng infrastruktura at agrikultura ang nawala ng saysay sa isang iglap. Kaya po sa araw na ito, simple lang ang tanong ko, sino ang mananagot? Oo, totoo, palala ng palala ang epekto ng climate change. Pero mas nakakagulat na tila titatanggap na lang natin ang ganitong trahedya na para bang normal na lang sa buhay ng Pilipino ang lumikas, lumubog at nang mamatayan. Na bagyo ang may pangalan pero ang pananagutan ay walang mukha. Kung ganun, hindi klima ang tunay na kalaban, kundi ang pagiging manhid. Habang tayo lumulubog sa baha, isang makasaysayang pangyayari ang naganap sa kabilang dako ng mundo. Noong Hulyo 23, 2025, ang International Court of Justice, ang pinakamataas na hukumang pandaigdig ng United Nations, ay naglabas ng isang advisory opinion na nagpapatibay sa matagal na nating panawagan. Ang usaping klima ay hindi na pakiusap lamang, kundi malinaw na obligasyon sa ilalim ng batas internasyonal. For the first time, the court affirmed unequivocally that states have binding obligations under international law to prevent, reduce, and redress the adverse effects of climate change. This message is unmistakable. The age of climate action as a mere policy reference or preference is over. Inaction is now a potential breach of international law. And perhaps more importantly, all necessary measures to protect the climate system must be taken by states as a matter of human right, because climate change is not just an environmental emergency but an existential human rights crisis. Uulitin ko po, ang usaping ito ay hindi lamang tungkol sa kalikasan, kung hindi karapatang pangtao. At ito marahil ang pinakamasakit. Ginong Pangulo, mas mababa sa 0.5% ang kontribusyon ng Pilipinas sa greenhouse gas emissions sa buong mundo. Ngunit sa loob ng 4 na sunod na taon, mula 2021 hanggang 2024, tayo ang tinuring ng World Risk Index Report bilang pinaka-disaster-prone na bansa. Tama po ang narinig nyo, tayo ang laging nasa unang hanay ng panganib. Tayo ang laging nawawala ng tahanan, nahihinto ang pag-aaral, nagkakasakit, naglilibing, nagluluksa. Sa bawat hampas ng bagyo, buhay at kinabukasan ng Pilipino ang kapalit. Pero sa totoo lang, hindi tayo nagkulang sa paalala o nagpabaya sa tungkuling ito. Matagal na po tayong kumikilos. Pinasa natin at naging karangalan kong ipaglaban mula ng 1998, bago pa noon, bilang tagapagpangulo ng dating Senate Committee ng Climate Change at Senate Committee ng Environment, yung Climate Change Act, People's Survival Fund, Ecological Solid Waste Management, Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, Expanded National Integrated Protected Areas, Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Renewable Energy Law, National Environmental Awareness and Education Act, Marami pa po, pati na rin ang pagpatibay sa mahalagang pandaigdigang kasunduan tulad ng Paris Agreement, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Kyoto Protocol, marami pang iba. Nakasaad rin sa Philippine Development Plan 2023-2028 ang climate action. Masasabi ko, pati na rin po sa GAA, tignan po nyo, mula nung ako'y nag-vice chair ng 2013 hanggang naging chair matapos ang 2019, ay marami po akong insertion, bantayan po nyo, Senator Lacson, ng climate provisions. I'm proud to put my insertions in the general and special provisions on climate and environment. Nangako tayo ng 75% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030 sa ating nationally determined contribution. Hinain natin ang kauna-unahang National Adaptation Plan 2023 hanggang 2050. Sinulong ang lokalisasyon, the localization, sa pamamagitan ng Local Climate Change Action Plans. Pero hindi sapat ang tinta ng batas sa papel kung palpak ang pagpapatupad. Anin natin ang plano kung wala namang sumusunod at lalong walang sapat na pondo ang pwedeng ilaan kung nilulusaw ito sa korupsyon. Ginong Pangulo, mas malupit pa sa bagyo ang sistemang paulit-ulit na napapalubha ng bawat delubyo. Hindi ito dapat magiging normal. Hindi normal na kalikasan ang bumubuga ng unos, pero gobyerno ang nagpapalala ng pinsala. Kapabayaan, hindi bagyo, ang pumapatay. Hindi pa man buwabagsak ang ulan, matagal nang buwabagsak ang sistema. Sa baradong kanal, kalbong kabundukan, kawalan ng matinong urban planning, substandard na infrastruktura, walang disiplina sa basura, higit sa lahat kawalan ng pananagutan. Instead of meeting the force of storms with the strength of our systems, we meet disasters with dysfunction, and we should not be surprised by the result: a climate crisis colliding with bad governance. It is hypocritical for us to call on the world to act, even those contributing most to this crisis, if our own house is in disarray. We have to get our systems in order, and to do that, we must start spelling climate justice differently, as climate prosperity. What do I mean? Because our people deserve more than simply surviving the next typhoon. Dapat silang makabangon, umasenso, mamuhay ng may dignidad. Mr. President, I've stood in this chamber since 1998. Year after year, Congress after Congress, sounding the alarm. And still, I must repeat what has already been said countless times. Climate change is a development crisis, a public health emergency, a human rights catastrophe. We must act at the scale demanded by the crisis. We must fundamentally rethink our development, valuing our nation's social, cultural, and natural capital, while aggressively building adaptive and low-carbon infrastructure. Above all, we must put our people at the center. Climate action must be pro-poor, pro-women, pro-youth, pro-indigenous. It must be guided not only by international law but by climate justice, recognizing that those who contributed least must not suffer the most from its consequences. And we are not alone. We have partners. I recently had the privilege of facilitating a dialogue between Philippine stakeholders and the 74-country Intergovernmental Alliance, which includes the Philippines, the Climate Vulnerable Forum, on the need to translate the country's climate and development plans into real investments into renewable energy, resilient infrastructure, sustainable agriculture, and the just transition initiatives. The CVF's flagship initiative, the Climate Prosperity Plan, is a country-specific investment strategy based on macroeconomic modeling and long-term development goals that identifies funding needs green industrial policies, and ways to attract the right investors and tools. A Philippine climate prosperity plan may well be the missing link between our climate ambition and implementation, because to breathe life into a plan is first to finance it. I am pleased to learn that the Department of Finance is already developing a Climate Prosperity Investment Memorandum, or CPP. I urge the DOF and the CVF V20 to work closely with local governments, all the way to our last mile communities, so to speak, to ensure this plan reflects real needs, viable business models, and inclusive prosperity. Therefore, Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I call on this body to decisively act across 4 critical areas. Number 1, mobilize and monitor climate finance. We must accelerate legislation that strengthens our ability to access, track, and utilize climate funds with full transparency and accountability. Dapat may tapat at maayos na implementasyon sa ground, hindi lang magarang report. Pangalawa, strengthen adaptation and local resilience. We need to fast-track the localization of climate action by supporting LGUs in updating and implementing their local climate change action plans, or LCCAPs, ensuring these are informed by the latest climate projections, risk assessments, and adaptation priorities identified in the Philippine National Adaptation Plan. These plans must be science-based, locally contextualized, and aligned with LGU investment plans to ensure relevance and funding support. We must also ensure the full enforcement of critical environmental laws, starting with RA 9003, I sound like a broken record, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, which plays a vital role in reducing flood risks, in improving public health, and protecting ecosystems through proper waste management and the clearing of drainage systems. Third, drive low-carbon development. We must move with urgency to drive economy-wide climate action. This means fully supporting the Climate Change Commission in updating our nationally determined contribution, our NDC, through a whole-of-government and nation approach, and ensuring that all development and investment plans are aligned with a just, low-carbon, and climate-resilient pathway. Accelerating the transformation of our energy, transport, industry, and agriculture sectors is key to building a green economy. We must break down barriers and create strong incentives for renewables, green jobs, and climate-smart technologies. Fourth, demand international accountability. We must enjoin the Department of Foreign Affairs, in coordination with the Climate Change Commission, the DNR, to diplomatically invoke the ICJ advisory opinion across all international negotiations. This landmark opinion strengthens our legal and moral standing to demand scaled-up climate finance, technology access, and loss and damage support from high-emission countries and fossil fuel corporations. We must pursue every diplomatic and legal avenue to hold major polluters accountable and advance climate justice for the Filipino people. In line with this, I filed a proposed Senate resolution affirming the binding nature of international climate obligations and urging its national implementation in light of the ICJ opinion. Sa mga miyembro ng lupong ito, hindi na bago sa atin ang krisis na ito. Nauunawaan natin ang problema, alam po natin ang solusyon, at higit sa lahat, alam natin na nasa ating mga kamay ang kapangyarihan, ang paraan upang kumilos. We must move faster, smarter, more boldly than anyone else. We're not starting from scratch. We have the institutions, we have the laws, we have the funding support. We simply need to make them work. Hindi na ito tungo lamang sa susunod na henerasyon, sapagkat ang dagok ng krisis ay naririto na at nadarama ng milyon-milyong Pilipino. Pero sa bawat tamang hakbang tayo rin ang unang makikinabang. Kaya tapos na ang tanong kung ano ang gagawin or kung kaya ba natin. Huhusgahan na lamang tayo sa pagkilos o sa kawalan ng kilos. Salamat po sa inyong pasensya at alam kong iba sasabihin nag-lecture na naman, pero ito po'y ginagawa ko mula noong 1998 at hindi po titigil hanggang masakatuparan ang mga batas na ginawa natin. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Senator Legarda, for your very informative, privileged speech. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, we are a living testimony of the track record of Senator Loren Legarda. Way back, Mr. President, bata pa po ako noon. I have been hearing a lot of good things and teachings coming from the distinguished lady from Antique until I became a member of Congress in the 12th Congress, and then when I became a member of the cabinet of the then Pinoy administration, I have been listening and following her footsteps in fighting the and espousing the advocacies on climate change. I was listening attentively, Mr. President, and what caught my attention the most is the on the four issues that Senator Legarda made mention. What caught my attention is the mobilize and monitor climate finance, and I'm one with her in pursuing this, especially now, Mr. President, that my home province, Bulacan's been suffering from this deluvios, Mr. President. Mr. President, first to make a manifestation is the distinguished gentleman from the great province of Isabela and Davao, Senator Raffy Tulfo. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Raffy Tulfo is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to associate myself with the privileged speech of our dear veteran senator, the good, gentle lady from Antique, Senator Loren Legarda. I completely agree that climate change and its impact on our daily lives is no longer a phenomenon, but a serious matter that we cannot ignore. The Philippines stands as one of the countries in the world most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Due to our location alone, as an archipelago situated in the Western Pacific region, we are prone to typhoons, storm surges, and extreme changes in temperature and humidity. Kahapon po, pinag-usapan natin ang kapakanan ng ating mga magsasaka at ang problema sa rice tarification law. Gusto ko lang po idagdag na sa usaping climate change, ang ating mga magsasaka ang isa rin sa mga pinaka-apektado at kawawa dahil sa paulit-ulit na El Nino at La Nina. Based on studies, almost 180,000 farmers and fisher folks have been affected by El Nino. Dahil sa matinding init at kawalan ng ulan, dumarami mga uod at peste, kaya tuluyang nasisira ang kanilang mga pananim. Pagdating naman ng tag-ulan, sunod-sunod na bagyong nananalasa sa kanilang taniman at tuluyang sumisira sa kanilang kabuhayan. Last June alone, due to the successive typhoons, an estimated 5.8 billion pesos worth of rice crops were damaged, with an estimated of 171,080 farmers and fishers folks affected across various regions. During the months of March and April, classes are disrupted and suspended dahil hindi na kayanan ng ating mga mag-aaral pumasok sa eskwelahan dahil sa matinding init. Pagdating naman ng June, hindi rin sila makapasok dahil sa sunod-sunod na bagyo at pagbaha, again disrupting classes and displacing students. These extreme weather disturbances due to climate change all lead to unnecessary learning losses every year. Masama din ang dulot nito sa kanilang kalusugan at mental health. Nakaka-stress sa mga mag-aaral at minsan sila ay nakaka-heat stroke at minsan naman ay nagkakaroon ng waterborne illnesses. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Senator Tulfo.
ako po'y lubos na nagpapasalamat sa manifestation. I would like to thank the good gentleman, Senator Tulfo for his manifestation and for our shared advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this juncture, I move that we recognize Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson for his interpellation. So move, Mr. President.
Senator Ping Lacson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished lady from Antique, Malabon, Makati, Batangas, Cavite, and the Republic of the Philippines yield to just a few questions?
Yes, I would be more than willing to yield to the questions of my former Vice Chair of Finance who used to interpellate me even if he was a Vice Chair. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. While this representation is not as passionate in advocating for a safe environment as the distinguished lady from Antique, still, I can relate with their passion, especially after the widespread flooding that we all recently experienced, if not read or heard about in the mainstream media or social media platforms, different social media platforms. Of course, this was highlighted by the President Sona, particularly on the drought-ridden flood control management projects that were implemented in recent years. My question is, if we will apportion the causes of floods, limiting our analysis to the Philippine setting, if the pie is represented by numbers like 100%, what percentages can we attribute to, number one, climate change, number two, neglect, indifference, or apathy, and the third is graft and corruption?
Thank you for that question, and I must say that these are all convergence and intersecting issues. Let me just state number one. Natural hazards need not turn into a disaster if we are prepared. Yung mangyayari pong mga delubyo at mga bagyo ay mangyayari, maski tayo ay hindi ang sanhi na bansa. Pero kung tayo po ay handa at tayo naman ay handa, ay hindi po ganyang kasama ang epekto kung tayo po ay sumusunod sa mga batas. But we cannot oversimplify it and say maybe 50% natural hazards, but 50% because we are apathetic or we are corrupt or we simply do not follow the laws. Let me just state. So first, the natural hazards will happen. But that's why there is such a thing as climate mitigation and especially adaptation for a country like the Philippines. For example, we have early warning systems. Do we follow these early warning systems? Second, we have vulnerable populations living by esteros, canals, riverbanks, or by the sea, which are in no-build zones. Do we actually implement the multi-hazard risk maps or the hazard maps? May color violet, we're not supposed to build infrastructure there. Do we actually follow it? Up to the regional, provincial, even barangay level, are these maps distributed and explained to our people? Is this followed at all by the DPWH and the DepEd? So early warning and then the use of hazard maps. Third, as simple as having roadside ditches or canals. Sometimes I see barangay roads which don't have canals. Syempre, aapaw po because hindi nag-construct ng tamang klaseng kalsada, maski ba maliliit. Pang-apat ay yung sinasabi kong basura. Bakit may nakitang mga sofa at mga tires sa mga pumping station? It does not belong there. It does not belong to rivers, lakes, esteros, and canals. It belongs to a material recovery facility based on the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. All the infrastructure that are built must adhere to strict structural integrity assessments. And if it is not done, pag hindi po ginagawa ng maayos, pag may substandard po ang pag-construct, pag may corruption po, which will lead to substandard construction, babagsak po ang tulay, mawawasak po ang dike, maaanod po ang mga tahanan, mamamatay ang tao, at mawawalan ng kabuhayan ng mga tao. Kaya tama po kayo na ito'y kombinasyon ng natural hazards pero kayang sugpuin at bawasan ang masamang epekto sa mga tao kung tayo ay handa at sumunod sa mga batas at totally eliminate or reduce the corruption so there is no substandard infrastructure that is meant to protect our people. But I cannot say 30, 30, 30 or 50, 50. I'm sorry, it would be difficult for me to put percentages because it actually overlaps.
No, I'm
So,
referring only
yes.
to the Philippine setting,
Yes,
Mr.
even the
President.
Philippine setting. I would say that corruption and inaction
Plays a
and
major role. They
plays
play
a major role. And let me just belabor the point, yes. I would like to say less than 50%, sa mo 30%, but this is really just my wild guess. 30% yung natural hazards, yung bagyo eh. Pero may batas tayo, pinopondohan ng batas. Kung hindi natin susundin at kung yung suporta at resources at pera na lilalaan sa mga infrastruktura ay mawawala or mangangalahati, siguro yung 70% ay dulot na rin sa ating kapabayaan at ang pagwalang bahala at sabihin natin sa katiwalian. So, what I'm saying is that in a perfect world, in a utopian world, lives need not be lost and livelihoods need not be lost the way it is happening in the Philippines if we did not allow it to happen.
Yes, yesterday, Mr. President, the President announced that he has already received a report from the DPWH regarding the anomalous flood control projects for the past 3 years. Do you have any idea how much has been appropriated during the last 3 years for flood management, for the flood management program of the
I
country?
don't have it offhand now, but that would be readily available first by DPWH and perhaps the Senate LBRMO office would have that. I was no longer chairman of the Committee on Finance at the time, but it would not only be DPWH, perhaps the NIA would also should submit the reports on irrigation.
No,
because
all flood management program related projects, Mr. President.
Yes. I don't have it right now of 23, 24, and 25. But that information would be available with the Senate LBRMO, with the Congress Budget Office, and perhaps during the committee hearings of DPWH, they could answer that appropriately.
Well,
Of the 5 trillion budget, which went to public works regarding flood control projects.
Well, let me answer my question, Mr. President. 280 billion in 2023 GAA, 349 billion under the 2024 GAA, and another 371 billion under the 2025 GAA. Now, ito po yung follow-up na question. Meron po ba kayong naipasok o na-adapt sa amendments para sa flood control sa Antique or any area in the country?
Let me state that very clearly. Ang Antique ay may mga lugar na nababaha. I wish I could have the possibility of doing an amendment to help those areas.
But you did not.
I'm not certain I have because I did not participate actively in the Finance Committee, neither did I join the BICAM. In short, baka hindi po na-adopt yung aking mga amendments. But I would like to state this, sa mga lugar na nabaha ay hindi naman masama ang flood control. Pero dapat ito ay science-based, aral sa engineering at sa sensya at hindi po ginagawang money-making ng marami. Yun po ang ibig ko sabihin. Ito,
Okay.
meron silang binigay pero maliliit na mga flood control projects sa iba't ibang lugar pero sinabi ninyo yung mga numero.
That is under the Senate version, Mr. President?
Yes.
Only under the Senate version.
I don't have the numbers now of
Your reference is the GAA? for 2023,
Yes.
24,
As I said, I don't have the numbers now of 23, 24,
I'm more
and
interested
25.
in the insertions made in the Senate, Mr.
Oh, I
President.
would not be at liberty to say that, but perhaps the chair of the Finance Committee then, who received all the amendments, but she's no longer with us now.
Go ahead, Mr. President.
Yes. So
Please,
what I'm saying
Kindly
is that
share with us the figures that you just received from the page.
oh, this is engineering district. Yes, yes. What year is this? 2025. Valderrama, Sibalom, and San Remillo. Yes. And there are amendments. Very good. This is for this year's amendments. Yes.
In what area, Mr. President?
In Antique.
Antique.
Thank you for this information. Did this come from my staff? Yes.
How about in other areas?
I don't have the other areas, but these are flood mitigation structures protecting public infrastructure. And I would be more than happy to see how these are implemented
Yes.
by the engineering district.
That brings me to the next question.
Yes.
Have you monitored the progress of those projects?
No, not yet. I have not seen any monitoring yet. Both the region and the district must be able to give reports. And thank you for pointing that out to me.
So kung insertion, hindi ba naka-PISARO yan? For issuance of SARO? Or FLR, for that matter?
Honestly, I do not monitor the PISARO, or follow up with DBM, and you can check that we never follow that. But it is important that when we give amendments, that if this is adopted, that we must monitor it. But sometimes the oversight function is lost along the way among the national amendments that we do in different provinces.
Yeah, I was thinking kasi dati po kayong chairperson ng Committee on Finance, and maski pa paano, you might be able to monitor during the plenary debates, or even during the committee hearings, kung ano yung mga insertions na nagawa dito sa Senate in the 19th Congress.
I was chairman from 2015 to 2019, so I would not remember those amendments, but I would be happy to learn and to find out how these are monitored and the implementation. In fact, to do not just a financial audit, but actually a performance audit of how these infrastructure projects were implemented.
And I'm sure you'll be as interested as I am to read or to know the President's the action that the President will take after he received the report from the DPWH, because
Yes.
it is nice to hear the President make those remarks during SONA,
Yes.
even to a point na mahiya naman kayo.
Yes.
But taking action or the follow-through action is the more important thing to us, di ba?
What's important is that we find out in the 81 provinces which are the most vulnerable that need real flood control. Because we cannot say, hindi kailangan ng flood control, because as someone who has studied disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation, even the construction of roadside ditches or canals is important, to be fair. And even, let's say, slope protection. It's been demonized by the poor implementation of some or many in different jurisdictions.
But you will agree with this representation na meron talagang anomalous projects pagdating
Of
sa flood
course.
control.
Yes. Yes.
Meron
That is-
din mga ghost projects that you have monitored while you were chairperson of the Committee on Finance.
Oh, ghost projects, I'm not able to say to be definite about it. I don't think as chairman of the Committee on Finance then, I would coordinate closely and ask the Finance Committee or the DPWH, ghost ba yan? No. I was not able to monitor any such ghost project. I could not do that.
Yeah, for your information, I did my some preliminary research work. I fielded some teams to areas that are suspected to have some projects, and I tasked my teams to find out kung ano yung status ng mga projects. And this is subject to validation. One such project had an appropriation of something like 190 million pesos in 2023. When we check with the GAA, meron naka-indicate na completed. It's just a sitio, very small. Sitio is smaller than a barangay, di ba?
Apuro.
So, pinahanap kong pilit, hanapin nyo nga yung flood control project na sa 2023 na sinasabi sa GAA completed. So, hanapin nyo kung nung itsura ng project. When they came back, they reported to me, Sir, wala hong project.
How would the district engineer and the regional director explain that there was
That's
a
the reason
GAA
why,
provision?
of course, as I mentioned, subject to validation. Kasi baka hindi napasadahan yung buong sitio, but if they did, then obviously, this was a ghost project in 2023. Worse, meron na namang appropriations, I think, in under the 2025 GAA, dalawang items. In the same sitio, hundreds of millions of pesos na naman yung... So, what we were suspecting initially, ghost project noong 2023, pwedeng pinonduhan para gawa ng project para mabura na yung 2023. But we intend to get to the bottom of this project and find out who, if indeed this was a ghost project, we intend to find out sino yung responsible. And I'm awaiting the report of the President to the public based on the report submitted by the DPWH kung kasama itong natuklasan namin, na-discover namin. That's only one item, Mr. President, but you know, there are tens of billions of pesos worth of flood control projects in that same locality, a bigger area.
May we know the name of the province?
Suspension, Mr. President. I might deliver a privileged speech or I might take it up during a committee hearing.
I'm almost certain it is not my home province of Antique. Although
It's not in Antique,
although we need,
Mr. President.
to be fair, we need a lot of flood control
Kasi
mitigation
Vicen-
measures.
Kung sa Antigan, Mr. President, I won't be talking to you.
Yes. No, but to be fair, the implementation of flood mitigation measures has been demonized. Kamukha kami, sa maliit na bayan ng Sebaste, may hanging bridge. Nawasak nung nakaraang bagyo, ang mga DSWD at mga staff ko tumawid ng ilog na naglalakad. Pero hanggang ngayon, dahil sa gitna ng taon, ay walang panggaa at napakahaba ng proseso sa NDREAM Fund para itayo yung bridge. Nabaha yung barangay, cut off from the mainland, but it's difficult for me to help them because there's no provision for flood control or even a regular bridge or a hanging bridge. So maraming nangangailangan at na-demonize yung pangalan na tinatawag ng mga proyektong flood mitigation measures because of wrong implementation, to put it very diplomatically, in many areas.
Well, are you with us in pursuing a more transparent
Of course.
budget process from the committee hearings all the way up to all the way down to the bicameral conference, every step of the way?
Mr. President, we filed Senate Resolution number 1. And I hope I won't read it, but may we include that into the records of this conversation and interpellation. That the contents of Senate Resolution number 1, which asks for budget transparency, be observed, and I hope that it could be adopted.
Yes, because at the rate practically everyone is gearing towards a transparent budget process, you know, in this Congress particularly, or in this regular session. I think we can more or less mitigate yung insertions because legislators will be more reluctant to insert projects that are not coordinated with the agencies that will implement those projects, simply because they will be identified.
Yes.
If we have a transparent budget process or legislation process dealing with the budget.
Yes.
For 2026.
I think from the very beginning, Mr. President, the budgetary process entails that the amendments of lawmakers must be aligned with what perhaps a district engineer or the LGU have discussed and have requested of the lawmaker?
But the problem, Mr. President, is even before the approval of second reading, hindi natin alam kung sino yung proponent ng mga amendments. Because these are not taken up in the plenary.
It should be taken up and there should be a more transparent process.
So you're with us,
Of course.
particularly with the new chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Gatchalian, because he requested the members of the minority to co-sign a joint or concurrent resolution to have a transparent budget process.
As I said, we filed, I think 7 of us, a budget transparency resolution. And today, I supported the chairman of the Committee on Finance in the resolution by party, majority and minority, in budget transparency concurrent resolution.
So we both agree that when we tackle the 2026 National Expenditure Program and we come up with our own version, the Senate version, even scrutinizing the House version, the GAB, that we will open everything to the public and to the media.
We should
Walang
open...
taguan ng amendments, especially during the BICAM. Will you agree with me if we pursue utmost transparency,
Yes,
especially
Mr.
during the
President.
BICAM, Mr. President?
That is the essence of the 2 resolutions which we have signed, and that is what we should have passed with a bill that I co-authored with you on the budget process, that the request must emanate from the local governments, having been reviewed by engineers and going up to the Regional Development Council. I think we discussed that 8 years ago when I was chairman of the Committee on Finance, and that's how we've always tried to make our amendments. But you're correct, if everything is seen, kakulangan ng classroom, sabihin mo na may flood control, may dike, kailangan talaga. At kung yung district engineer magbibigay ng ganong request, kung ano man ang kailangan, may irrigation, kung talaga naman kailangan ng irrigation, paninindigan na mag-aamenda ng budget.
I'm very happy to hear that, Mr. President, because at least after the President castigated the all of us, as a matter of fact, during the fourth SONA, siguro naman magigising na tayo sa katotohanan na mahiya naman tayo.
Mahiya naman tayo
Na
lahat.
mag-insert ng alam naman natin na hindi alam ng implementing agency.
I agree with you, Mr. President. Mahiya naman tayo. Una, ang tagal na nandyan ang batas. Pangalawa, may pondo naman at hindi tayo mahirap na bansa. Pero matagal na nang naghihirap dahil hindi napapatupad ng ayos at ang iba ay napupunta sa katiwalian.
I will not belabor the issue anymore, Mr. President, and these matters will be taken up during the committee hearings of the budget deliberation and even in plenary. So let's wait and see kung talaga magiging transparent tayo lahat.
I think the
At least in the Senate.
But the fact, Mr. President, the 2 resolutions have been filed already. One by the minority, and second, initiated by the majority, the chairman of the Committee on Finance, and signed by the minority as well. There's no reason why there should not be transparency in the budget process.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, and we see how the issue of climate has intersected with the issue of budget transparency. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Lacson, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, next to make a manifestation is Senator Amy Marcos. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Amy Marcos recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Majority Leader, if the lady from Antique will submit a few questions.
Yes, Mr. President, I would be more than happy to receive questions from the good senator from Ilocos.
Yes, maraming salamat, and we're all fully aware that the first issue would be climate finance, of which there are quite a few sources. Today, even without insertions that appall Senator Lacson, in 2025 alone, we had 364.4 billion in the operational GAA. So that in spite of this very huge amount, the ancient, as it were, Metro Manila Plan of 1977 has not yet completed the Parañaque Spillway or even the dredging of Laguna de Bay. So firstly, there is the GAA. Secondly, of course, there is the agency that Honorable Legarda herself established, the Climate Change Commission, which is the agency that seeks to access the Climate Change Fund, the Green Fund, and other international funds. I would like to enjoin my colleagues, especially Senator Legarda, to remind the DFA to please send us, finally, the ratification package for the LDF, or the loss and damage. If you will recall, in August 13, I sponsored last year, almost 1 year na, itong approval the very next day, and it became RA 12019. Until today, we are yet to receive the ratification package, and being that we're the host country for the LDF board, I believe that this would be a very, very good source of additional climate finance. As of today, the total pledge is US $788.8 million, and already $271.6 million have been received. So marami tayong makukuha niyan, being, as you stated, the most vulnerable country. Magtulungan po tayo para kalampagin at maratifikate ito sa lalong madaling panahon. Magbibigay sila under the Barbados implementation modalities ng iba't ibang proyekto from 5 to 20 million US dollars. Sana ma-access natin to sa lalong madaling panahon.
Thank you for that. And yes, I acknowledge the fact, and we're grateful that the good sponsor had initiated and passed our hosting of the Loss and Damage Fund Board in the last Congress. That means a lot to us. But our hosting of this and the passage of such treaties would not be effective if we don't know how to access it, and if these treaties,
We haven't
these
even
boards-
ratified po. That's the problem.
We have not yet concurred.
Yeah,
in the
I'm still
ratification.
waiting for the ratification package from DFA.
We passed the law.
We did. We passed the law that merely grants juridical personality and legal capacity
But
to
concurring in
the loss
the
and damage. Pero ratification still pending. So sana magtulungan po tayo, kalampagin ng DFA na matapos yan, dahil hindi natin ma-access yung milyon-milyon dolyar para sa loss and damage.
Yes, because I know that we passed something. So it's not yet the concurrence in the ratification of the
Wala
loss
pa.
and damage fund.
Wala pa.
Okay. So there's nothing to act on?
Wala
If-
pa. Kailangan kalampagin yung DFA para ipadala yung ratification
From
package.
DFA, Mr. President, it should go to the OP, and the Office of the President will transmit it to the Foreign Relations Committee.
There we go.
Which you chair now.
Yes, clearly we should have first pick at the amounts that have been mentioned. Malalaki na yung halaga na pledge, na kolekta, kaya sana tayo mauna. At kinikilala naman tayo bilang pinaka-vulnerable sa lahat-lahat ng uri ng disaster.
I'm one with you in that, yes.
2 weeks ago, we also heard that in fact the ICJ ruled that the LDF can respond to cooperation and facilitation for a so-called charge against the LDF. Yung iba, kinakabahan at sinasabi parang para nating hinahabla yung LDF or yung UN or yung World Bank. Hindi naman sa ganon. It's just a request, and it will not involve liability or compensation as agreed upon in the United Nations, but rather loss and damage recognized and based on cooperation and facilitation. Dapat mauna na tayo humingi dahil alam naman natin the ICJ opinion is not binding, it's merely persuasive, but it carries great weight, and we should be at the head of the line. So sana wag tayong kabahan na parang inaaway natin sila, hindi naman ganon, kundi talagang nag-ipon sila nitong halaga para magamit sa climate-related projects. So I'm hopeful that we can make these projects once again at hindi madelay tulad ng ibang mga projects sa CCC.
Thank you very much. The CCC is actually here now.
Yes, I saw them, yeah.
And in my understanding, the funding mechanism of the CCC has been moved to the Department of Finance.
Yes, I understand that's correct. At yun nga ang issue. Pero ganun pa man, kung saan man manggaling, whether it's the GAA, whether it's the climate change access to present climate finance, even if it's the LDF already, sana talagang mabigyan ng diin ito. The methods are very, very simple. We need to clean the canals, the esteros. We have to control the development in vulnerable areas. We have to relocate people and save human lives. And most of all, the master plan. We are not starting from scratch. As early as 1977, a Metro Manila plan was already in place, further reiterated by President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. This master plan involved flooding, drainage, and sewage. Mapagsimulan na sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I'm one with you in the implementation of all these enacted laws and our concurrence in the ratification of the Loss and Damage Fund. Honestly, there's so many sources of climate finance, Green Climate Fund, local adaptation funds, Loss and Damage Fund, but some processes are too tedious and circuitous. I get the feeling that they don't like to release the funds, and it takes a long, long time for vulnerable countries to access them. And then we still need to monitor the implementation of these funds, as what Senator Lacson had mentioned. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator Marcos.
Yes, Mr. President, next to interpolate is Senator Juan Migazui. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Migs Subir is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, would the lady senator allow some interpellations, friendly interpellations from a fellow believer
Yes.
in her advocacy?
I would be more than happy to answer the interpellations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, if I may proceed. Mr. President, I would like to congratulate first the lady senator from Antique, Malabon, and Republic of the Philippines for her steadfast support on all issues regarding climate, particularly in climate change. Ever since I've known her as a congressman, and a young congressman then, she was already espousing for the environment. She has not changed her advocacy, even if her advocacy is not sexy during elections and politics. Many politicians, Mr. President, go for the, I'd say, more politically astute politicians would go for the more closer to the stomach issues, which is labor problems, health, of course, livelihoods. But Senator Lauren Legarda, Mr. President, can be considered as our champion against climate change. That's why she's Miss Climate Change. Not because she's moody. She's not moody, but because she believes in it from day one. So I'd like to congratulate the lady senator. But Miss Earth, she's the original Miss Earth. Yeah. Actually, there was once a friend of ours we used to call Madame Earth. Mommy Earth. I forgot when we were fighting for our Solid Waste Management Act. She was your #1 supporter, and I forget. Mother Earth. Yeah, she passed away, unfortunately. But going to climate change, Mr. President, I'd like to ask the distinguished lady senator, would you consider that we're supposed to be not just climate change, how would you say, conscious, but we've had so many Congresses that passed, so many administrations that passed. From climate change, I'd say studies, climate change advocacies, we were moved towards climate change resilient programs and climate change mitigation. Would like to ask now the lady senator, Mr. President, today, in your fourth term as a senator, what grade can you give the government in coming up with projects that are climate change resilient or will help mitigate climate change? What grade can you give the government from a high of 10 to 0?
Just like my answer to Senator Lacson in putting percentages, I may not be able to give a percentage or a grade, but I would be honest in saying that we have failed.
Yes.
Government has failed its people. We have failed. And let me just say why. Because first, we have enacted the laws. So we cannot say that we're ignorant in terms of policies. We have all the laws in air, in water, in land, in climate action, in disaster risk reduction. We have the laws. We cannot say that we don't have the funding resources, because we have. Because we have tried our best to put our funding in those laws and institutions, but we are very poor in terms of implementation, in terms of governance, whether it's in national or in local. And this is exacerbated by the fact that the climate is changing and the natural hazards, the storms have become more intense and more frequent. So while the climate has become worse, the natural hazards have become worse, we have not improved. I say this, and I consider myself as part of a government in a way that we have tried to enact the laws, but insofar as its implementation and monitoring and oversight is concerned, I think that we've failed. We've failed our people.
Yes.
And I would not pin the blame on one person, one institution, one administration. It's been going on for so long, and I think that we must really find the solution. But the solution actually lies here. It's so simple. Shouldn't we clean our drainages and canals every day, and not only when there's a typhoon? Pagbaha lang. Should we not actually follow the hazard maps because they are the no-build zones? Should we not actually evacuate our people in due time because we have early warning systems, unlike in Ondoy when we did not have the Doppler radar in 2009? Should we not ensure the structural integrity of our flood mitigation structures, which are needed, which are funded, but sometimes or oftentimes fail in protecting our homes and livelihoods? And so, I think we've failed. That is my humble opinion. Perhaps the engineers or those who are implementing our laws would think otherwise, and I would like to be convinced that we have not failed. But you see the results, the continued loss of lives, and the flooding even when there's no rain shows that it's not working.
I have to agree with the lady senator, Mr. President, that it's been a failure. We've seen a lot of infrastructure projects that are put up, and maybe due to the corruption that's slowly being brought out now in the consciousness of each and everyone. Social media, we thank social media for bringing it out to the consciousness of almost every member of society now, whether they're rich or poor. And I give you an example, Mr. President. In Bicol, where my mom is from, she's from Albay. When I visited recently, about a few months ago, when there was a typhoon that hit them, and namigay po ako ng tulong sa bayan ng Libon, kung saan po pinanganak ang aking lolo, Dr. Fernandez. At ang banggit sa akin doon ay paulit-ulit po silang humingi ng flood control kasi baha po dyan na projects. Ang problema daw, Mr. President, ay parang chop suey na hindi po siya master plan. Ang gagawin, maglalagay po ng dike dito, wala naman dike sa gitna, lalagay na naman ng dike dito sa kabila. So kung sana lang po may butas, doon lumalabas ang tubig, nababaha pa rin po yung mga barangay. Tapos ang sabi pa nila, Mr. President, yung mga project doon, yung mga dike, pagbagsak, nakita po nila, puro kawayan yung laman. Hindi po kabilya ng bakal. Yan yung riprap na kawayan po, bamboo, ang ginagamit po nila as the base, as I'd say the base frame, which should be, of course, all steel. So, would you say that, in a way, we have failed in our climate resilience, in our climate mitigation projects, due to the fact that there's been widespread corruption on these infrastructure projects?
Yes, the failure of oversight, the lack of structural integrity, the collapse, figuratively and literally speaking, of infrastructure because it's substandard, because of corruption. These are major and main causes of the loss of lives and livelihood. As I said, we could have avoided the loss of lives because we have the laws and we have the institutions if only we implemented the laws properly.
Yes, Mr. President. And imagine we spent so much money, hundreds of billions of pesos on particular infrastructure projects, Mr. President, na hindi naman gumagana. Like, for example, grabe pong ulan dun sa mountain areas of the Cordilleras. And most recently, we saw a video and pictures of the landslides that now have destroyed Cannon Road.
Yes.
A very large portion of Cannon Road is unpassable now due to the high level of rainfall. But the sad part about it, Mr. President, is if you look at the designs of the landslide mitigation facilities that they used, which is more commonly known as rock netting rock. Sasabi ko, rock netting rock. Kasi yan ang hilig po ng mga politiko, maglagay ng rock netting. Isang maliit lang na ulan, or mabilis lang po na ulan ay nagigiba na. At may sinabi pa nga si Senator Ping Lacson sa akin na yung isang project na rock netting ginamit fish net. Hindi na po yung bakal na wire netting. So fish net na po. So I agree with your observation, together with my observation, that due to rapid or the increased corruption or the how do you say, kapalmuka na korupsyon ng ating ibang mga kababayan, ay natetengga itong mga projects na sisira at ultimately ang taong bayan ang kawawa. At sana naman po, Mr. President, don't you think, Mr. President, to the good sponsor, na hindi lamang pong insulto na nakakahiya kayo ang itapon natin sa kanila, kundi dapat siguro kasuhan na sila para sa ganun ay hindi na po ito mangyayari muli. Would the lady sponsor agree with me on that observation? That strong words, yung mainit na pagsasalita, yung panginginsulto sa mga taong na gumagawa nitong mga I'd say katiwalian na ito na talagang apektadong taong bayan, hindi sapat. Would the good sponsor agree with me na hindi sapat ang magiging galit lamang at pagsabihan itong mga to, at dapat kasuhan natin itong mga to?
Mr. President, I agree with you. In fact, in my statement earlier, I mentioned about accountability. There must be accountability in the process. And I think I also mentioned it earlier in my speech in Filipino na hindi na sapat na pulaan lang natin, pero kailangan may managot.
Yes.
And that translates to accountability.
So this is a big part of your on your speech. It encompasses many topics like climate finance, climate change resilience and mitigation, etc., etc. And we cannot move forward as a nation, which is the number one most affected by climate change, if we do not clean up our acts, Mr. President. Because if we do not clean up our acts, para kaming sirang plaka. Because my first speech when I entered in 2007 was about climate change. My first ever speech as a senator. I was in that podium, pinag-usapan po namin pag-iiba po ng klima and what it can cost to our country as a climate change, it's one of the vulnerable countries for climate change, and even raised steps that we can do. For example, climate resilient classrooms. And ngayon po, Mr. President, yung isang classroom, and I'd like to quote, wala lang po Senator Bam, he's in his office, but Senator Bam and I were complaining that yung classroom building, one single detached classroom building, is 5 million pesos na po. But if it is built by a foundation, like the Philippine Chinese Chamber of Commerce, it's half. If you donate it and you pay for it, 2.5 million, makatayo ka na ng solid classroom. Yung masama pa dito sa 5 million, Mr. President, parang substandard pa, walang banyo, nasisira yung kesame kaagad pag may malakas na hangin, and that is why we're so inefficient in utilizing our funds that panay utang po tayo ng utang na tayo po lahat ang magbabayad, pati ang ating mga apo at apo sa tuhod, at pumapasok na ito sa iilang tao lamang sa kanilang bulsa dahil sa korupsyon. As a matter of fact, I'm excited to hear the expose of Senator Ping Lacson. He said there's more than 67 contractor members of Congress. Dapat yan, ipalabas po natin yan, Mr. President, and we support him. We support him and the others who will come out with this list, because it is a blatant abuse of authority and a blatant, how do you say, tumayo kasi si Senator Ping, kaya na-distract. Pero yung shameless ba? Very, very shameless. But I yield first to Senator
With the
Lacson.
permission of Senator Legarda and Senator Subiri.
Yes, with the permission of the two senators.
Wala
Senator Lacson.
po akong list ng congressmen na contractors. Meron lang akong numero. Kasi nanggaling din sa congressman yung 67 and counting. But I didn't ask for a list, so I don't have a list. I just want it clarified, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Lacson.
We stand corrected, Mr. President. He has a number. Yeah, he has a number. And I think I would suggest to Senator Lacson, to my dear colleague in the minority, that when the hearings come about, maybe you can ask who are these people who win these contracts. And then who are these 67 or who are these contractors, and if they have familiar names. Kasi we can compel the Securities and Exchange Commission to give the ownership structure of these companies. Malalaman din natin kung sino talaga itong mga sounds like. Kung yung pangalan ng congressman ay ganito, tapos yung pangalan ng contractor ay ganito, sounds like the same, baka kamag-anak po. Kaya dapat silipin natin po yan. Because there's a huge conflict of interest. That is the word that I was looking for. A conflict of interest which has never been seen in any other country, especially first world country, Mr. President. Yung mga Hapon naghahari-kiri, napapakamatay dahil sa isang shameful, action done by this person, nagpapakamatay na. Dito sa atin po, hindi, lalong yumayaman. Kaya I feel for the lady senator. We have been talking about climate change from the very first day that climate change was put in the consciousness of the world by no other than Vice President Al Gore. But paulit-ulit po ang plaka. Ika nga, tayo po'y paulit-ulit po nagsisigaw. Naggumawa na tayo ng hakbang. Pero lahat ng hakbang na ginagawa po natin, Mr. President, ay palpak. Kaya, I support the lady senator on her crusade. And I wish actually, Mr. President, if possible, if we can return back to her the Senate Committee on Climate Change, because she actually was the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Climate Change. Kasalanan ko po yun. Nung majority leader po ako, kinausap ako ni Senator Frank Drilon, ang minority leader. And he said, Migs, kung gagawa ka ng bagong committee, dapat mag-collapse ka ng iba. We have to rationalize our committees. Natatawa ang ating majority leader. That was the time when Senator Soto was still our Senate President. So I apologize to the lady senator that now she's back in the Senate. We no longer have the Climate Change Committee that was really her baby. and she did so much work there that I'm appealing maybe one day we can return that committee back as a standing committee of the Senate, which is a standing committee, by the way, in the House of Representatives, and hopefully nominate her once again as the chair of the Climate Change Committee.
Thank you for mentioning that, Mr. President. It was in 2009. I was on my second term when I pleaded to the whole body to create the Senate Committee on Climate Change, because as I mentioned, and as you all very well know, climate change is not only an environmental issue. It is an overarching, it's an issue of national security. It's an issue of health and agriculture and livelihoods. And so it was an enlightened Senate in 2009 that created the Standing Committee on Climate Change. And I chaired it until my third term in 2019. And to my disappointment, my two good friends and allies, Senator Soto and Senator Zubiri, had abolished it and subsumed it under environment, which is not really an enlightened move. Because, as we all know, and I'll say it again, climate change is both agriculture and food, national security, education, and health. It should be a stand-alone committee. But then, committee or no committee, I stand before you to urge for urgent climate action. And I accept your apology.
Yes, that's why I'm apologizing, Mr. President, because now I realize the folly of our action, because really, there should be a standing committee of the Senate on climate change. And I fully support it if there will be a move to amend the rules later on, that we have one. The talent of this distinguished lady senator cannot be limited only to culture and arts, Mr. President. She's the chairman of the Culture and Arts Committee.
That's very important too.
No, it's very important.
Yes.
I don't want to belittle that. I'm just saying your talent should be more than just one committee.
Thank you. You've more than made up for the wrong decision you did in 2019.
And before I end my
Thank you, Mr.
before I
President.
end my interpellation, just want to say, the only thing that there may be climate change all over the world, umiiba yung klima sa buong mundo. But one thing with Senator Legarda, her beauty has not changed, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Zubiri. Senator
Thank you
Pangilinan.
very
Yes, with the permission of Senator Zubiri, just a brief manifestation with the permission of the good
You have the
lady
floor.
Senator from Antigua. Yes, should a committee on climate change be restored or created by plenary? Perhaps one question that I'd like clarified is, how then do we decide if the matter involves agriculture and climate change? Where will it be referred? So that the answer doesn't have to be done today. I just want that clarified, because there will be potentially conflicting referrals or conflicting jurisdictions rather, and therefore that has to be clarified. The answer doesn't have to be given today, but
I can answer it very easily. Thank you for that. If you backtrack in the archives in 2009, these were the same discussions, and you were a senator then. I recall that I stood on the floor and defended the necessity for a standing committee on climate change, understanding the issue very deeply, that it is more than an environmental, an agricultural, a health, a livelihood issue. And as we all know, there could be 2 or even 3 referrals in terms of our bills and resolutions, but it would depend on how the bill would be crafted and drafted. But there should be no territorial or turf issues here, because the issues are so complicated, at the same time so broad, that it could be discussed from the lens of climate or from the lens of agriculture, or even both, and many more sectors, Mr. President.
thank you for the clarification. I'd still like to get when. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a question of which committee will have jurisdiction over a certain resolution, bill.
The old rules, nandun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pangilinan. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, before I make a motion to refer the privilege speech of Senator Legarda, I'd just like to commend Senator Legarda for being very consistent, as mentioned by Senator Zubiri. When climate change is not that sexy, hindi siya ganun ka-popular, but it is something that we really have to take in serious right now. Almost all the problems that we are facing now, flooding and other natural disasters, are caused by global warming and climate change. And that she has been very consistent. Every time she enters the room, she changes the climate of the Senate Hall. Pinababago po niya yung pinapainit niya po. Just kidding. But again, we'd like to commend Senator Legarda for being consistent for her advocacy. And likewise, Mr. President, this representation filed an FOI bill doon po sa binanggit po kanina ni Senator Lacson about budget transparency, which includes promotion of transparency in government, includes live streaming of committee hearings, including the bicameral conference committee hearings. So with that, Mr. President, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senator Legarda and all the interpellations and the manifestations thereon to the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change. So
Any
moved, Sir President.
objection? There being none, motion's approved.
Mr. President, next to take advantage of the privilege R is Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I move that he be recognized for his privilege speech.
Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at sa ating pinunong mayorya. Bago po ako mag-umpisa, gusto ko lamang pong sabihin sa ating Senadora Loren Legarda na tayo po ay aksyon, hindi drama, kaya kinausap po tayo ni Senator Joel Villanueva at kami po yung nagkasundo na paunahin po kayo na magbigay ng privilege speech dahil kami pong dalawa ay naniniwala na kayo po ang pundasyon ng usapin ng environment at ng climate change. Mama, hindi yung salita, gawa yan. Apo. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ako po ay hayaan niyong magbigay ng background sa akin pong gagawing pribilehiyo. Una, ang United Nations General Assembly po ay nagkaroon ng resolusyon numero 181. Ito po ay naganap noong 1947. Ito pong resolusyon na ito ay nagsasabi na magkaroon ng paghihiwalay sa bansang Palestino. Ang paghihiwalay po ng Arab at Jewish states. Ito po ay na-implement noong 1948 at dito po napagkasunduan na hiwalay na silang dalawa. Noong 1948 din po, May 14, 1948, nagkaroon po ng pagkilala sa State of Israel. At dito pong mga nagaganap na pangyayari, nakalulungkot pong isipin na ang State of Israel ay progresibo. Sila po ay masasabing isa na sa mga mayayaman na bansa at katulong natin, kasama natin, kaibigan natin at laging nasa tabi natin bilang isang bansa, ang Pilipinas. Ang nakalulungkot po, ngayon po, magmula noong Oktubre, ito po ang nagaganap sa bansang Israel at sa Palestinians. 60,933 na po ang namatay na Palestino. 150,027 na po ang Palestinong sugatan. At according sa UN, 28 children dying daily. At sabi din po, 147 people have died due to starvation. At 88 of them were children or infants, mga sanggol. Ngayon pong Setyembre, inaasahan po na tataas ang food shortages with more than 500,000 na tao po ang makaka-experience, makakaranas ng pagkagutom at malnutrition. At sa ngayon po, meron ng 4,500 amputations. Ito po ay yung napuputulan ng kamay, paa. Ang average po ay more than mga bata po. Didiretsahin ko na po. Mga bata po ang karamihan sa mga biktima ng amputations. Ito pong mga figures na ito ay verified. 39,000 children in Gaza have lost one or both parents. Among these, approximately 17,000 children have been orphaned. Nawalan na po ng tatay at nanay. UNICEF has also estimated at least 17,000 children in Gaza Strip are accompanied or separated from their parents. Mga organisasyon po na katulad ng Save the Children nagsabi na karamihan po sa mga kabataan ay sinusuportahan na lang po nila ang kanilang sarili sapagkat ang kanilang mga magulang ay namatay na o napatay. Mga kasama, napakahilinaw po ng ating konstitusyon. Ang sinasabi po sa 1987 Constitution, Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies. Section 2, the Philippines renounces war as an instrument of national policy, adopts the generally accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land, and adheres to the policy of peace, equality, justice, freedom, cooperation, and with all nations. Malinaw po yun. With all nations. Ginoong Pangulo, mga kagalang-galang ng miyembro ng lupon na ito, ako po'y tumitindig sa pulpitong ito ngayong hapon bilang isang ama, bilang isang tao na nilikha ng Diyos, na kinikilala po ang regalo ng buhay at mga karapatan. Hindi po maikakaila na sa pinakamataas na antas na po ng pagkawala ng ating pagkatao ang nangyayari sa Gaza. Hindi po natin malilimutan, ayon po sa pinakahuling ulat, yung sinabi ko pong 60,000 mahigit na po ang namatay. Hindi po ito pelikula. Hindi po ito parang ang mga artista ay pagkatapos kunan ay tatayo, uuwi sa kanilang bahay, may bayad. Lahat po ng napapanood natin sa balita ay katotohanan. Tunay na buhay po at tunay na patay. Ilang bata na po ang gutom, uhaw, at takot, at tila ginawang sandata na po ng digmaan ang pagkagutom. Ito po, mga mahal kong kababayan, isang maiksing video. Panoorin po natin. Alam ko pong marami sa atin ayaw nang makita ito. Marami po ako nakakausap na mga mambabatas mula sa malaking kapulungan at sa ating kapulungan, sa mataas na kapulungan, na nagsasabing hindi ko na kayang mapanood. Mga kababayan, hinihingi ko po ang inyong 3 minuto upang panoorin po itong video na ito. Ayon po sa United Nations at sa iba't ibang humanitarian agencies, sila po ang nagsasabi. Ito na po ang isa sa pinakamatinding humanitarian crisis sa kasaysayan ng ating panahon. Isang bata po ang hindi nating malilimutan. Si Amir, 11 taong gulang. Naglakad po siya ng mahigit sa 12 kilometro upang kumuha po ng pagkain. Walang tsinelas, sugatan ng paa, sa ilalim po ng putukan para makakuha lang ng isang biskwit mula sa isang aid distribution site. Sa sobrang tuwa po niya, ay hinalikan niya pa ang kamay ng tumulong sa kanya. Hawak pa niya ang biskwit nang siya po ay barilin ng sniper. Namatay po si Amir. Isang batang gutom, hindi kalaban, hindi armado, isa lamang po sa 60,000 na inosenteng biktima. At si Donya, isang ina sa Gaza, sugatan at umiiyak habang yakap ang maliit na sapatos ng kanyang sanggol na namatay habang nakapila para humingi ng gatas. Ginuot ginang senador, bawat numerong binabanggit po natin ay uulitin ko, hindi po ito pelikula ni Angelina Jolie o pelikula ng mga sikat sa Hollywood. Ito po ay tunay na pagdurusa. Ayon po sa isang ulat din, ito daw po ay nagmumukha ng sistematikong pagpapahirap. Pagpapahirap para makakuha ng pagkain, tubig, gamot. Sinasadya daw po na harangin. Pati daw po ang mga doktor, mga nurse at mga volunteers ay wala ng proteksyon at nadadamay pa sa patayan. Hindi po daw maikakaila na ang gutom at takot ay ginawa ng kasangkapan dito sa gera na ito. Aming mahal na tagapangulo, hindi na po ito digmaan. Nais po nating ipaliwanag at makita ng ating mga kababayan na hindi po tayo pwedeng manahimik sa usapin nito dahil ito po ay labag sa karapatan ng tao. Ito po ang hinihingi natin. Hindi po tayo madamay dito sa gulo na ito kung hindi tayo po ay humihingi ng awa upang payagan po ng ating kaibigan na bansa ng Israel na makapasok, proteksyonan ang mga sibilyan, humanitarian workers, at payagan po nila ang tuloy-tuloy na pagpasok ng pagkain, ng tubig, ng gamot. Sapagkat tayo po ay nagpasa ng resolusyon patungkol dito. Ang hinihingi po natin ay madinig kaagad at masabihan po sa diplomatikong paraan ang bansang Israel na payagan po tayo, ang bansang Pilipinas, na magsagawa ng humanitarian mission para sa mga nasa Gaza. Mga kababayan, hindi naman po maitatanggi nung panahon na World War II ang Pilipinas. Bago po sumiklab ang World War II, binuksan po natin ang ating bansa sa mga Hudyo. Andyan po ang dating Pangulo Manuel L. Quezon na naging kasangkapan po upang makita ng buong daigdig ang puso ng Pilipino. Sa pagkakataong ito, hinihingi po natin na mapagbigyan po tayo. Meron pong mga resolusyon ngayon na nagaganap sa United Nations para kilalanin ang napag-usapan pa noong 1947 na magkaroon ng 2 states. Yan po ang State of Israel at State of Palestine. Katunayan, ito pong nakalipas na July 28 at 30, pinangunahan po ng France at Saudi Arabia ang isang pandaigdigang pagpupulong sa United Nations kung saan nilagdaan ang New York Declaration. Dito po ay sama-samang nanawagan ang mahigit 30 bansa mula sa European Union, Arab League, kabilang na rin po ang United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Brazil, hanggang Egypt at Ireland, na itigil ang digmaan at simulan ang konkretong landas tungo sa kapayapaan at pagkilala sa Estado ng Palestine. Sa darating pong Disyembre, sa pagbubukas ng 80th United Nations General Assembly, kaya naman, tayo po'y nananawagan na sana po, tulungan po ninyo ako, mga mahal kong kasama, na makumbinsi ang ating gobyerno na ipanig po natin ang ating boses, ang boses ng mga Pilipino, ang boses ng Pilipinas sa panig ng katarungan, hindi karahasan. Magkaroon ng konkretong solusyon upang magkaroon ng konkretong kapayapaang hindi bulahan. Mga kasama, ang pananahimik po sa harap ng krisis na ito ay isang masasabing kasalanan bilang isang Kristiyanong bansa, bilang Muslim na bansa, bilang Hudyong bansa. Sapagkat ito po ay malinaw. Malinaw po ito. Napapasawalang bahala natin ng pagkakapantay-pantay natin bilang tao. Hindi na po ito usapin kung anong citizenship mo, kung anong lahi mo. Ito po'y usapin na bilang tao. Kaya po ako'y humihingi din ng panalangin. Panalangin para kay Amir. Panalangin para sa bawat batang hindi na magkakaroon man ng ngiti, hindi man makakatawa, bagkus nababalot ng takot at kalungkutan. Panalangin po para sa mga magulang na nawalan ng anak, para sa mga anak na nawalan ng magulang. Panalangin po para sa kapayapaan sa Gaza. Panalangin para sa Israel at sa buong mundo. Isantabi po natin ang ating mga pananampalataya sa oras na ito. Magdasal po tayo hindi bilang isang Kristiyano, hindi isang Muslim, hindi isang Hudyo, hindi isang Buddhist, hindi isang Hindu. Magdasal po tayo bilang mga tao. Nakikita na po ng mga mata natin. Malinaw na po sa mga mata natin. Hindi po ako kalaban kailanman ng Israel. Marami po akong kaibigan ng Israeli. Ako po ay naging bisita pa ng bayan ng Israel. Ang akin pong paggalang sa Israel ay nasa puso ko. Ang usapin po nito, hindi na po ito usapin ng Israel o Palestino. Tao po tayo, tao! Kapag ka nadidinig po natin, wag naman po tayo magbingi-bingihan. Wag naman po tayo magbulag-bulagan. Hindi po ito usapin na nakikialam tayo sa seguridad ng bawat bansa. Hindi po. Karapatan nilang ipagtanggol ang kanilang sarili. Ngunit hindi po ito na ayon sa ating konstitusyon na makita po natin na ganyan ang nangyayari sa isang lahi. Dahil tayo po, ang ating konstitusyon, ginawa yan, una, pagpupuri sa Diyos. Kung tayo po ay tunay na naniniwala sa Diyos, hindi po natin dapat takpan ng ating mga mata at manahimik sa usapin na ito. Hindi po tayo titindig na maghahanap ng away. Tayo po ay titindig para makapagdala ng kapayapaan at ng relief goods. Yan lang po ang hinihingi natin. Mabigyan po tayo ng access na makapagbigay naman po tayo ng relief goods diyan sa Gaza. Nang wala pong pipigil kung hindi bibigyan pa tayo ng proteksyon. Yun lamang po mga mahal kong kasama. Pagpasensyahan nyo na po ako kung nagiging emosyonal sapagkat ang nakikita po natin sa ating mga mata, uulitin ko po, hindi isang pelikula, hindi isang Netflix o Prime, ito po ay tunay na buhay. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, the Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Hontiveros, is seeking the floor for her manifestation.
Senator Hontiveros recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to express my deep solidarity with the people of Gaza and affirm my strong conviction that peace and human dignity must be upheld. Ang mga pangyayari ngayon sa Gaza ay hindi lamang isang humanitarian catastrophe. Ito ay isang krisis ng sanlibutan. Libo-libo na ang namatay, pami-pamilya ang nalipol. Natutulog sila na walang kasiguraduhang magigising kinabukasan. Basic infrastructure and social services have been decimated. Gaza has been reduced to rubble. Sa datos ng UNICEF, 50,000 children have been reportedly killed or injured since October of 2023. Sa ilang estimate, at binanggit din ito ni Senator Padilla, 28 bata, halos katumbas ng isang classroom, ang namamatay sa Gaza araw-araw. Critical na ang kawalan ng pagkain, tubig at gamot. Ayon sa reports, the blockade of aid, the starvation, the constant forced displacement, and the destruction of hospitals, water systems, schools, and homes, in essence, the destruction of life itself in the Gaza Strip. It is the responsibility of the Philippines, as a member of the community of nations, to speak out against these crimes against humanity. I commend the Philippine government for standing on the side of human rights and international law. Last June, together with 148 other countries, we voted in favor of a UN General Assembly resolution demanding an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. It is also our personal duty as human beings to not choose silence when our fellow men, women, and children are dehumanized on this scale, especially with the presence of Filipino-Palestinians living in Gaza. Shukran kay Senator Padilla for lending his voice to this issue. Kaisa niyo po ako, pati sa Senate Resolution number 14. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hontiveros. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, Senator Erwin Tulfo is also seeking the floor for a manifestation.
The gentleman from Palawan, Senator Erwin Tulfo, is recognized.
Maraming salamat po at magandang hapon po, Ginoong Pangulo. Nais ko lamang pong magpahayag ng aking pagsuporta po sa resolusyon na final po ng ating kasamang si Senator Robin Padilla patungkol po sa paghingi ng suporta para po sa mga tao po doon sa Gaza na ika nga ayon na rin po sa mga balita ay nahihirapan na at libo-libo na po ang namamatay doon at libo-libo na rin ang namamatay sa gutom. At libo-libo rin po nasasaktan para makipag-agawan, makakuha lamang po ng pagkain. Gabi-gabi po, napapanood ko ito sa telebisyon, sa mga balita, na ganun po ang nangyayari sa mga tao doon, kabilang na po ang mga kabataan. Mayroon lamang po sana akong katanungan sa aking idolo sa pelikula. Sa aking idol po, matanong ko lang, paano po natin ipapahayag o anong gusto ninyo para maiparating natin sa liderato ng Israel o bansang Israel o sa kanilang ambassador dito sa atin ang ating pagtutol sa nangyayari doon at paghingi ng suporta. Ito po ba ay sa pamamagitan ng diplomatic channel, sa pamamagitan po ng Department of Foreign Affairs natin na magpadala po tayo ng sulat at ipahayag po ang ating suporta at ang pagtutol sa nangyayari doon sa pagpigil po sa paghahatid ng mga pagkain at patuloy po ang pag-atake at pagbomba po ng Israel sa Gaza. Ganun po ba?
Opo, yes, the gentleman is recognized. Senator Padilla, please.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Napakaganda po ng mungkahi ng aking pinsan. Maraming salamat po, Insan. Alam niyo po, matagal na po natin ito pinag-uusapan dito sa plenaryo. Nakailang beses na rin po akong banggit dito, nakailang beses na rin po akong pakiusap para po sa ating sa DFA na tumindig po, ano? Lalong-lalo na po ang ating representante sa United Nations. At nagkaroon naman po na magagandang kamakailan lang po, tayo po ay tumindig dyan. Tumindig po ang ating ambassador doon, ang nag-represent ng United Nations, para po dyan, na magkaroon po talaga ng tigil putukan, ceasefire, ganyan po. Lahat po yan. Ang nangyayari po kasi, ang hinihingi po natin ngayon para magkaroon po ng final solution. Ito pong mangyayari sa September, diyan po sa United Nations General Assembly, magkakaroon po dyan na ang butuhan kung kikilalanin na po ang State of Palestine. Ang hinihingi po natin, sana po ang ating pong gobyerno, ang ating pong administrasyon, sa tulong po, no? Kanina ko pa po binubulungan ang ating chairman ng Foreign Committee. Kanina pa po kami nag-uusap. At kayo po bilang Vice Chairman, ay ma-endorso niyo po ako na mapayagan po ako sa diplomatikong paraan. Opo, hindi po yung kailangan po alam kailangan batid ng bansang Israel na tayo po'y pupunta doon upang makapagbigay po ng humanitarian relief. Mapayagan po tayo. Kasi sa ngayon po, insan, talagang wala pong makapasok na kahit na sinong bansa at nakalulungkot po yun. Dahil meron naman po tayong diplomatic relationship sa Israel. Katunayan po, wala po tayong visa dyan. Tayo po ay nakakapasok sa Israel ng malaya dahil sila po din ay tumatanaw ng utang na loob sa atin sa pagtulong po sa natin sa kanila noong World War II. Kaya yung po sanang diplomatic relation na yun, magamit po natin ngayon sa humanitarian aid. At sana po, ang pangalawa po nating hinihingi, yung magkaroon ng final na kapayapaan kung ang Pilipinas po ay boboto sasama sa EU, sasama sa United Kingdom, sasama sa iba pang bansa, Canada, Japan, na boboto po na magkaroon na ng Palestinian state. Yun po talaga aking insan, ang aking pong idolo, napakatapang idolo sa larangan ng journalism, na ito po talaga, kung hihingin po natin yung tunay na katapusan ng kaguluhan nito, yun po talaga, two-state solution at yung pong mapayagan tayong makapagdala ng humanitarian aid.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Rest assured po sa ating pong Senador Robin Padilla na pag nag-convene po ang Committee on Foreign Affairs ay pag-uusapan po at tatalakayin sa lalong madaling panahon ang issue na ito para makahatid po, makapagbigay din tayo ng tulong at ayuda ang ating bayan sa mga tao po doon sa Gaza. Hindi lang po pagbibigay ng ayuda at tulong sa mga sinalanta ng bagyo o baha sa mga panig na bundok, kundi sa mga lugar na sinalanta rin po ng giyera sa mga oras po na ito. Yun lang po, Ginoong Pangulo, maraming salamat po at magandang hapon po sa inyo.
Maraming salamat, Senator Erwin Tulfo. Senator Amy Marcos is recognized.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President, Majority Leader. I would just like to extend my support to the Senator Robin Padilla, and with the hope and the prayer that Israel, with whom we have had long-standing diplomatic relations mula pa noong 1958, and the embassies have been in full operation. They have had economic relations, cultural ties, pati military ties. Namimili tayo ng LBIT system sa kanila. At ako ay saksi nung tumulong ang Israel sa atin, yung Masyad at yung iba't iba pang charitable organizations doon sa tinatawag nilang Typhoon Haiyan o Yolanda dito sa atin. Andun ako sa Leyte, sa Tacloban, at nakita ko ang hirap at malasakit nila para sa atin. Sana'y bigyan tayo ng pagkakataon na makatulong din sa Gaza on a purely humanitarian level, walang bahid ng politika, walang pakikiisa sa alinmang panig, at makatulong. Nakakasama talaga ng loob at halos hindi ko mapanood sa telebisyon ang nangyayari sa mga kabataan, kababaihan, matatanda sa Gaza. Sana makatulong tayo tulad ng ginawa ng Israel para sa atin nung panahon ng Yolanda. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Senator Amy, for your manifestation. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, next to make a manifestation is Senator Legarda. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Loren Legarda is recognized.
I wanted, Mr. President, to convey my support for the advocacy, long-held advocacy of Senator Robin Hood Padilla. And I associate myself with all the views and the pain that we've seen in the photos and video and the daily news that bombards us regarding the continued genocide in Gaza. No nation with a conscience can plead ignorance of what is unfolding. The ongoing devastation and terror happening in Gaza is a human tragedy of unspeakable proportions. The continued blockade, indiscriminate bombardment, the obstruction of basic humanitarian assistance have pushed over 2 million civilians to the brink of famine, displacement, and death. These are not consequences of war, but of impunity left unchallenged. I can say much more, but I will leave it at that. And I would like to lend my support to the proposed resolution of the only Muslim senator in session. But this really goes beyond religious beliefs and religion. This is really the greatest, perhaps, humanitarian challenge of our times. And our silence would be complicity in the genocide that is occurring. And so I join the good gentleman from Bicol in the Philippines for this proposed resolution that he has filed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Loren Legarda, for your manifestation.
Yes,
Sir,
Mr.
Speaker.
President, last but not the least, to make a manifestation is our Senator Juan Miguel Zubia. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Mig Subir is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is a short manifestation of support to Senator Robin Hood Padilla, who I've known for a long time, is also an adopted son of Mindanao. He's right, Mr. President. Hindi lamang ang mga kapatid natin Muslim ang dapat magingay dito. Lahat ng tao sa buong mundo. Whether you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're a Buddhist, you're Hindu, you're even a pagan, if you wish, Mr. President, or an atheist. This is already law of humanity. Humanitarian grounds na po ito. Tama po kayo. Nung napapanood ko po yung video, may mga batang maliit dyan. May anak din po ako ng 10 taon. Imagine if your 10-year-old son is in the same situation as they're facing now in this day in Gaza. Siguro bilang ama, wala ka talagang magagawa, Mr. President. But as a nation who believes in humanitarian law, Mr. President, we should support all efforts in the United Nations to finally find a solution of this problem. I'm surprised, Mr. President. Dati nung bata po ako, yung United Nations ang pinupuntahan ng taong bayan kung may ganitong klaseng pag-aapi at gumagawa po sila ng task force, peacekeeping force. I know Senator Lacson was former chief of police, knows this for a fact, that we set many members of the PNP in areas like Africa, Myanmar, South America for peacekeeping roles. Sana naman, like Kosovo in Europe, sana naman po yung umaksyon ng United Nations. Alam ko vinivito ng mga ibang bansa dito sa Security Council, but if this is taken on the floor in plenary, and as a majority vote of plenary, take this up that we should send peacekeeping forces there, I think it should be done in the name of humanity, Mr. President. How ironic, sabi ko nga dito, how ironic, Mr. President, na a country that was almost wiped out of the face of the earth 80 years ago in World War II because of their religious beliefs is now doing as the same to another small country beside them. Ang balita nga po, Mr. President, gusto na pong pasukan ni Mr. Netanyahu ang Gaza at i-take over na. It's an invasion already, no longer in the guise of anti-terrorism. Okay lang sana po kung yung anti-terrorism po nila ay surgical strikes, yung tinatamaan po nila, yung mga combatants, yung mga leaders. Pero ngayon, Mr. President, it is to whom it may concern. Yung binobombahan po nila doon. Kaya ang dami po mga bata, mga nanay, mga lolo at lolang namamatay, non-combatants. I think this should be enough. Tama na po, sobra na po ang pagbobomba nila sa tao dun sa Gaza. Dahil tao din po sila eh. Di ba? In the grand scheme of things, we're all just human beings trying to survive with our families, trying to live a life of decency, Mr. President. Kaya, ako, dati, tahimik lang po ako dahil marami tayong kaibigan na Israeli, kaibigan natin si Ambassador na umuwi na po sa Israel. Pero, pag nakikita kami ni Ambassador, sinasabihan ko na rin si Ambassador, tama na siguro yung ginagawa niyo. Kawawa na yung mga tao doon. Maawa naman po kayo sa mga tao. And I think that is the basic sentiment all throughout the world, if you ask me now, that enough is enough. And I support the speech of the good gentleman. Shukran to your speech. And inshallah, one day, we will see peace in that area. But it has to be done with all countries, support of all countries towards that peace. Katulad ng ginawa natin sa Bangsamoro, napakahirap, all government, all country approach. Pero nagawa na po natin. Pero may konting gusot lang na yun. Na sana maayos po natin. Pero kung kaya natin gawin doon na halos 3 dekadang nag-aaway yung gobyerno at ating mga kapatid na Bangsamoro, kaya din sana po natin hanapan ng solusyon itong problema sa Gaza. So Mr. President, I congratulate the gentleman from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte and the Republic of the Philippines, our lone representative, Muslim representative in the Senate, in his move to finally put an end to the strife that the people of Gaza are feeling and are experiencing now. Thank you. Mabuhay po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Subiri, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senator Robin Hood Padilla and all the manifestations and interpellations thereon to the Committee on Foreign Relations.
Any objection? There being none, motion's approved.
Mr. President, Senator Risa Hontiveros would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Risa Hontiveros is, yes, before I recognize Senator Hontiveros.
Yes,
Senator
just a
Subiri.
really quick manifestation. You know, all the speeches today are very good speeches. One was climate change. The other one was about the abuses in Gaza. And I'm sure the speech of Senator Risa Hontiveros is also very important, Mr. President. I would just like to put on record, all the members of the minority are here today listening to all those speeches, Mr. President. As always, Mr. President, just a friendly manifestation.
Noted. Senator Hontiveros, you are now recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, dear colleagues, I rise on a point of personal and collective privilege. Nitong nakaraang Hulyo, ay nabalitaan natin ang pagpataw ng preventive suspension kay Government Service Insurance System President and General Manager Jose Arnulfo Wick Veloso at 6 pang opisyal. The facts which led to these suspensions are nothing short of alarming. Ano ba itong pinaggagagawa ng GSIS sa pera nating mga kawani ng pamahalaan? Dear colleagues, habang seryosong itinutulak ng Senado ang mga panukalang batas ukol sa e-gambling, mukhang may isa pang klase ng pagwawaldas ng pera na dapat nating bantayan. Yung pondong inaasahan ng mga pampublikong manggagawa na magbunga sa takdang panahon matapos itabi at hulugan, ay mistulang isinusugal at ipinapatalo ng mga opisyal ng GSIS. Let's look at the numbers. At present, GSIS has a 1.83 trillion pesos in total assets. 1.83 trillion piso iyan mula sa sama-samang pangarap at pagsisikap ng ating mga kawani sa gobyerno na buwan-buwan ay kinakaltasan ng sahod bilang contributions sa GSIS. 2,736,710. Ganyan naman po karami ang mga miyembro at pensyonado natin sa ilalim ng GSIS. Sila ang ating mga guro, pulis, traffic enforcers, doktor at nurse sa pampublikong ospital, empleyado sa lokal na pamahalaan. At syempre, maging mga kasamahan natin dito sa Senado. Kayong mga masisipag nating katrabaho sa Senate proper at Senate Secretariat. With millions of Filipinos depending on GSIS for their pensions and other benefits, GSIS investments should be made in a sound, safe, and liquid manner in compliance with regulations designed for that purpose. Ang problema, mukhang ang mismong liderato pa ng GSIS ang hindi sumusunod sa mga alituntunin na iyan. In recent weeks, new articles have started to shine light on the 1 billion peso investment of GSIS in online gambling platform DG Plus. You heard that right, Mr. President and dear colleagues. Pinaka nakakagulat sa lahat, nag-invest ang GSIS, naglagpas 1 bilyong piso sa online sugal. Pinasok ito ng GSIS when DigiPlus's shares were being offered at a peak of 65.30 pesos. Those shares have since hit a low of 13.68 pesos. Lugi na! In the first place, what was GSIS thinking? Investing funds in online gambling. Tayo nga po, mga kasamang nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno, hindi pwedeng tumuntong sa casino. Lalo na, hindi pwedeng magsugal doon. Kaya, bakit ang GSIS naman, todo taya at ginawang puhunan ang pera ng public employee sa sugalan? Sa ngayon, tayo sa Senado at pati ang House of Representatives, maging ang Malacanang ay lahat gumagawa ng mga malalakas na inisyatiba, paninindigan, laban sa online sugal dahil sa mga masasamang social costs nito. So, why is GSIS doing the opposite? Why is GSIS investing the retirement money of public servants to seemingly expand the e-gaming industry? We need explanations. And unfortunately, Mr. President, this is just the tip of the iceberg. By law, GSIS has the fiduciary duty to invest the contributions of its members wisely, ensuring they meet the requirements of liquidity, safety or security, and yield to guarantee the actuarial solvency of the funds. Dapat lang naman, no? Isipin nyo, buwan-buwan kayo, buwan-buwan tayo naguhulog sa GSIS. Yung mga nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno, gaano katagal na kayo? 10, 20, 30 years? Tapos, hindi pala inaalagaan. Hindi pala sinisiguro. Hindi pala ginagarantya. Yung pondo natin, pagdating ng panahon, wala pala kayong tatanggaping pensyon. It appears there is a pattern of reckless and questionable investment decisions by the current GSIS leadership. The guardrails we have put in place to guide and protect GSIS investments are seemingly being breached. Remember that preventive suspension of Mr. Veloso and other GSIS officials. That was imposed in connection with the 1.45 billion peso subscription agreement entered into with GSIS by GSIS with Alternergy Holdings Corporation for the purchase of 100 million of the latter's perpetual preferred shares. A quick look at the GSIS Alternergy deal reveals multiple red flags. According to the Ombudsman, Mr. Veloso and his fellow GSIS officials may have committed serious misconduct when they entered into an agreement to purchase Alternergy's perpetual preferred shares without the approval of the GSIS Board of Trustees and in clear violation of the GSIS's own investment policies and guidelines. GSIS also entered into this multi-billion peso deal without the necessary endorsements from the GSIS's own assets and liabilities and risk oversight committees. Glaringly, Alternergy's market capitalization was far below the 15 billion peso minimum reportedly required under GSIS policy for investable companies. The shares were not even listed with the Philippine Stock Exchange on the dates of the execution of the agreement and the payment of the subscription. Even worse, Alternergy also appears to be highly over-leveraged. Simply put, they have too much debt, with a debt-to-equity ratio of 194% and a dangerously low interest coverage rate. Paano nakapagdeklara ng 40 million peso cash dividend ang kumpanya iyan? Puro sila utang at in financial distress na. Ang malala pa, Mr. President, hindi nag-iisa ang Alternergy. Ayon sa annual audit report ng Commission on Audit noong 2023, nag-invest ang GSIS ng hanggang 2.38 billion pesos sa 3 publicly listed companies kasama na itong Alternergy. All 3 companies had not demonstrated a proven track record of profitability over the last 3 years and payment of dividends at least once over the same period in clear violation of the revised GSIS Act. Sadly, the GSIS has already suffered a 251.37 million peso valuation loss on these equity bets. 251.37 million peso valuation loss. This is no longer risk-taking. Pagtatapon na ito ng pera. And Mr. President, the COA grimly warns that this is just the beginning, since the investments could undermine the actuarial solvency of the pension fund and place members' savings at risk. We cannot dismiss COA's warnings, especially when GSIS is already exposed to other risky and problematic investments. In fact, let's not call them investments. These are plain and simple bad bets. Along with GSIS's questionable investment in online banking, online gambling, there is also the continuing 0.82% stake of GSIS in Del Monte Pacific, a company teetering under $2.3 billion in debt and facing massive write-offs. This investment has already incurred an estimated paper loss of 19.1 million pesos for GSIS, representing a 32.5% decline in its stake. Pero sa kabila ng matinding paalala sa mga opisyal noong bumagsak na ang halaga, hindi pa rin umaatras ang GSIS sa Del Monte Pacific. Mukhang pinaglalaruan at hinahayaan lang masayang ang pera ng ating mga lingkod bayan. Mr. President and dear colleagues, this is why the Senate should act swiftly to review the policies, procedures, and guidelines covering the GSIS's investments decisions. We should strengthen GSIS's investment policy compliance and oversight. We should increase transparency and accountability in their investments, and we should plug policy gaps and clarify ambiguities. Ngayon kasi, mukhang may pagkakaiba ang interpretasyon ng GSIS Act, ang GSIS at COA ukol sa investment options nito. The COA was of the opinion that the GSIS was limited to investing in securities of companies with a proven track record of profitability over the last 3 years and payment of dividends at least once over the same period. However, GSIS argues that these parameters are not restrictive, but rather only enumerated investments requiring reporting to Congress. Kaya dapat na itong tignan, pag-aralan at aksyonan ng Senado. Kung kailangan i-amyenda ang GSIS Act, gawin na natin. We must update the law and erect the necessary guardrails for GSIS investments to protect its members amid ever-evolving financial markets. Mr. President, dear colleagues, 2.7 million GSIS members, survivor pensioners, and their families are counting on the Senate's decisive action. Kapakanan ng bawat pampublikong manggagawa ang nakasalalay dito. Ang bawat teacher, lalo na yung pa-retire na at nahihirapan ng tumayo sa harap ng klase. Ang bawat pulis o traffic enforcer na araw-araw nagtitiis sa gitna ng init o ulan. Ang napakaraming health workers, social workers, at maging mga empleyado dito sa Senado na nagtatrabaho ng maayos, marangal, at may malasakit. Mr. President, dear colleagues, sana'y agaran tayong kumilos para sa lahat ng Pilipinong umaasa na balang araw, yung kanilang retirement fund mula sa maraming taon ng sakripisyo at serbisyo publiko ay magdudulot naman ng ginhawa. Ang pensyon ng pampublikong sektor, hindi pang sugal. GSIS should not waste or gamble away the future of those who serve our nation. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Senator Rizzo Hontiveros, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, Senator Erwin Tulfo seeking the floor for manifestation.
Senator Erwin Tulfo is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Nais ko lamang po, I would like to express my manifestation of support doon po sa sinabi po ng ating butihing senadora patungkol po dito sa pag-expose niya sa mga nangyayari dyan sa GSIS sa ilalim po ng administrasyon ni Ginoong Velasco. Ako din po ay nagagalit at naiinis dahil ito po ay pinagpaguran ng mga empleyado ng pamahalaan. Dugo at pawis ang pinuhunan po nila dito para pagdating po ng panahon ng kanilang pagre-retiro, may mahuhugot ang mga empleyado, maging ang mga kasamahan po natin dito sa Senado na mga rank and file. Kaisa niyo po ako, Senadora Risa, hinggil po dito at nais ko po talagang maimbestigahan ito. At kung may pagkakataon po, maghahain po ako at may ng panukalang batas na kailangang imbestigahan po ito at makasuhan po si Ginoong Velasco Abiloso. At kung mamarapatin po ng Committee on Rules at paimbestigahan sa Committee on Games and Amusement, akin pong iimbestigahan sa lalong madaling panahon itong paglalagay ng GSIS ng pera ng mga retirees sa online gaming ika nga sa DG Plus. Ito po ay aking paiimbestigahan. Kung may kumita, mukhang may kumita po rito, mayroon hong komisyon or kickback at hindi po ito karapat-dapat at katanggap-tanggap. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
Maraming salamat po sa Ginoo mula sa Palawan.
Thank you, Senator Tulfo.
Sir President, next is Senator Amy Marcos. I move that she be recognized.
Senator Amy Marcos recognized.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President and Majority Leader. I'd like to inform the senator from Capi, Senator Risa Hontiveros, that in fact, on July 31, I filed Senate Resolution number 39, directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation into the alleged questionable investments of the GSIS, putting at risk 2.7 million employees of government, our hardworking and very ill-paid government employees. Sunod-sunod po ang kabulastugan sa pag-i-invest sa GSIS. Una na po yung shares ng Alter Energy na hindi nakalista sa Philippine Stock Exchange, unable to meet the minimum capitalization, exceeded the limit on shares for public trading, ang daming violation, kaya tuloy-tuloy nung July 11 ay nasuspinde. Ikalawa, nung July 2, nabulagta yung Del Monte Pacific na nagdeklara ng bankruptcy. Unfortunately, ang GSIS na naman nasa top 25 shareholders ng Del Monte. So, na isalalay na naman ang mga pensyon ng ating mga trabahador. Ikatlo, ang nabanggit na ni Senator Risa, itong 13 to 16, 2025, binili na naman ng GSIS yung mga shares ng DG Plus na bumagsak na, nasa 20% na ng purchase price. At ikaapat, meron pang Nickel Asia, a 1.46 billion investment in Nickel Asia, once again without board approval. At ikalima, a failed attempt na naman. Ito hindi natuloy pero nag-effort din daw to invest 100 million US dollars in a credit fund linked to the defunct Lehman Brothers. Apakalabo naman ito. Hindi naman ito natuloy itong Lehman Brothers. Ganun pa man kung bakit pinagpilitan pa at napakalaki ng 100 million US. So 5 po ito, nakaduda-dudang mga transaksyon na talaga naman na ipinusta yung pensyon na inaasahan ng napakaraming halos 3 milyong Pilipinong mga pensyonado. So sana tulungan ako ni Senator Risa at sa lalong madaling panahon kasi walang tigil itong kaduda-dudang mga investment, tignan na ng Blue Ribbon at iba pang mga komite natin. Salamat.
Salamat din po sa lady mula sa Ilocos Norte. Yes, tutulong din po ako kung saan man ma-refer pati itong privilege speech ko kung doon nga sa komite ni Senator Erwin Tulfo or sa iba pa, pero tutulong din po ako para maimbestigahan ito at salamat sa mga dagdag na impormasyon na ibinahagi ninyo. Salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senators Marcos and Hontiveros. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, I seek the floor. I move that you recognize.
Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. Nais ko lamang pong mapabilang sa mga kasama po nating senador, katulad po ni Senator Erwin Tulfo at ni Senator Amy Marcos, sa pagsuporta po sa inihain po na talumpati ng ating ginagalang at atin pong hinahangaan na Senadora Risa Hontiveros. Kasama niyo po ako, anuman pong inyong hakbangin, hindi po ako talagang makakapayag, katulad po ng inyong sinabi, na hirap yung ating mga taga-gobyerno sa usapin ng kanilang kontribusyon, tapos ito'y mawawala lamang. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Maraming salamat din po sa Ginoo mula sa Camarines Norte at BARM.
Thank you, Senator Padilla, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we refer the previous speech of Senator Risa Hontiveros and all the interpellations and manifestations thereon to the Committee on Government Corporations and Public Enterprise. So move, Mr.
Any
President.
objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Adjourn na?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, August 6, 2025.
Any objection? The Binyanan session is adjourned until 3 o'clock
Wala pang ano.
in the afternoon of Wednesday, August 6, 2025.